Part 239. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2387. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu suddenly failed to search the site today. Please keep in mind the domain name of the site, the full spelling of Shuhig, to find your way home. You can search Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito on Baidu to find the latest chapter. Everyone was shocked. Including the domain lord who was shot away, including Leda, including the several large galaxy-class people who had been standing aside for a long time and forming a background wall, as well as the observers who were watching the battle remotely, and some civilian spacecraft further away. With ordinary strong men. At this moment, everyone was shocked. Probably even if many years pass, these people will remember the scene today. In their eyes, the subspace turned into a normal space. It was completely penetrated to the very depths by a shocking force. Then, on top of it, there was a huge planet that actually existed inside the subspace. What's more important is that on the planet, there is a creature covered in pitch black and with a body that is as huge as 50 kilometers. He just raises his head, and there is a raging flame in his eyes that is difficult to look directly at. With some kind of imperial look, the momentum looks down upon all creatures in the outside world. This is an absolutely powerful domain lord level. And he is not an ordinary domain lord level powerhouse. In this battle, the first person whose mind was racing and wanted to understand everything was Leda. He was confused for a moment, and suddenly realized that Jia Yan did not lie to him when he said that he was a domain lord during the communication. Moreover, Jia Yan was too low-key. He said that he was a territory lord, but he did not say that he had actually reached a level of strength that was more terrifying than that of ordinary territory lords, or even compared to the Queen of the Zerg. Of course, even if he said it at that time, he wouldn't believe it, because Jia Yan said that he was a territory lord, and Leda didn't believe it. If he said that he was a territory lord, he was more powerful than an ordinary territory lord, or even compared to the Queen of the Zerg. It was even more impossible for him to believe the powerful territory lord. Only now did he realize, where did Jia Yan brag? He was not bragging at all, because at this moment, Jia Yan himself proved with his real combat power and his huge body that he was a territory lord. Leda smiled bitterly. There is self-mockery in this smile, but also the joy of surviving the disaster. He laughs at himself because he feels that it is a fool's dream to understand the strength of a genius with a weak mind like his own. The growth rate of a genius is far beyond his imagination. And to survive the disaster, of course, it is because he understands that as long as the giant mosquito in front of him is still willing to save him, it is already a piece of cake. Even the domain master of this force himself cannot withstand the power of Master Jia Yan's brain waves. What else can stop him from Leda being rescued? How about it? Do you still want to release the brainwave power to suppress me? In the subspace, Jia Yan glanced at the outside world as if he had done something trivial, and then focused his gaze on the embarrassed territory lord. In the entire audience, this domain lord was the only one who had the slightest chance of letting Jia Yan look directly at him. There is no way to be taller among the short ones, not to mention that Jia Yan has not forgotten that the other party just provoked him. Don't you want to attack yourself with momentum? Didn't he vaguely reveal that he didn't believe he was a territory lord? Now I have revealed my true strength. I am not only a territory lord, but also a senior territory lord who is much more powerful than you. Let's see how you respond. In the distance, the huge territory lord, who was more than 40 kilometers in size, rolled several times with his muscles tightly bound. Then he supported himself hard and barely stopped his rolling. This collision of brainwave power completely defeated him, and at the same time, it suddenly became clear in his heart that the opponent's strength was definitely far superior to his own. It is even possible to touch the threshold of a senior domain master. That is the strength he has been pursuing all his life. This grumpy territory lord fell silent in an instant. When he met such a strong man and almost crushed him, what else could he say? He has a violent personality, which is definitely not the reason why he dares to talk back to such a powerful being, because this is just seeking death, and he is not that obsessed yet. Your Excellency, you are joking. I was just, a little offended. Please forgive me. This muscle-bound territory lord finally gave in. All the temper and disdain he had before had all disappeared and turned into lowering his proud head. Or it should be said that he didn't have that much in the first place. Temper, it all depends on the person. If the other person is a strong person, no matter how big the temper is, it will become nothing. Excuse me? Your Excellency is not a newbie, right? You are already a territory lord. You should know the general plan in this universe. Let's just tell you how much compensation you will pay this time. Jia Yan didn't say anything to him. Anyway, he knew that the conversation would end at this point, so he just spoke openly. After all, his time and the other person's time were precious. Okay, Your Excellency, I'm going to discuss compensation right now, and I'll give you an answer in no time. The other party looked uncomfortable for a while, then nodded, quite agreeing with Jia Yan's simple conversation method. In fact, he was the same way. If Jia Yan was not as strong as him this time, in fact, this strong man had no intention of killing the outsider. After all, the existence of subspace talents was not so easy to kill, and in the end the opponent escaped. He provoked an elusive subspace enemy for no reason, which would hinder the development of his power in the future, so he didn't have that much murderous intention in the first place. It just backfired. He originally wanted the other party to compensate or join him, but now he wanted to compensate himself. His mood was like riding a roller coaster, which was very uncomfortable. Very good, and my friend, can you give it to me, or do you still need me to do it myself? Jia Yan looked at Leda, who was being guarded by several galaxy-level people, but to him, it was as if no one was guarding Leda. Let it go, you guys, let this adult's friend go quickly. The territory lord was startled and took action. He didn't want to, so he quickly asked several galaxy-level subordinates to let go of Leda's suppression. Not long after, Leda was let go. He hesitated for a moment, looking at the subspace, hesitantly wanting to enter but not daring to enter. Sir Leda, what's wrong? Have you forgotten me, Jia Yan? Come in, I won't hurt you. Jia Yan's voice gave Leda a little motivation. At the same time, he remembered the process of dating Jia Yan, and also remembered that Jia Yan came to save him this time, so he shouldn't have any malicious intentions. Haha, Master Jia Yan is overthinking it. I've never been into subspace before, so I'm a little scared. Here I am. Leda found an excuse, then smiled and flew into the passage Jia Yan had just created with the power of brain waves. In fact, the passage exists and is connected to the outside world. He entered it and flew to the fifth dimension without feeling the slightest difference. At the same time, he also sighed, this Jia Yan is now simply synonymous with mystery and power. It is impossible for him to see the tail of its strength again. Although he could not compare with Jia Yan in the past, Jia Yan and he had the same nominal strength at that time, and the status of both parties was not that absolute superior and subordinate. Although he also helped Jia Yan work, he did not so much affiliation. But it was different now. Through such a conflict with the territory lord, he understood how terrifying Jia Yan's current strength was. He even thought about where this place was while flying. In the black hole area, in the center of the Milky Way, and even in places like this, the outside world cannot know too much about what is inside, otherwise all life forms in the outside world will be jealous. But Jia Yan dared to show off his power here, thinking of the possibility that he might have been here for a long time. Leda suddenly felt that she could hug a giant thigh this time. At least on the surface, the strength seems to have surpassed that of the Zerg Queen. You must know that the Zerg Queen is the biggest thigh among the many strong men in their line, and is also the final guarantee of combat effectiveness. In the previous days, it was also because of the existence of the Zerg Queen that they had a smooth journey, even in the center of the Milky Way. In the star field, there was a sky. Although, something unexpected happened later. But now, the genius Jia Yan, who came to the central star field of the Milky Way with them and behaved differently from the beginning, has turned into a thigh that is thicker and more terrifying than the Zerg Queen. He suddenly felt, I am so lucky to have found such a giant thigh in a place where it is almost impossible to meet acquaintances. I feel 100 times safer than being next to the Zerg Queen. In an instant, he made a decision, that is, to hug this thigh tightly and never let go. These are thighs that are thicker than the Zerg Queen. Another important thing is that Jia Yan is younger than the Zerg Queen. In other words, his talent and future are destined to be greater than those of the Zerg Queen. No, he is extremely powerful now. Being able to exist so boldly in the black hole area, isn't he already close to the top level? The more he thought about it, the more Leda felt that holding onto this thigh tightly in the future was definitely the right decision. Boom. While thinking, this strong man had already entered the interior of the Edicious star in the subspace. He is not unfamiliar with this planet at all. When Jia Yan built this planet, it was within the Zerg Queen's power. Welcome, Lord Leda, long time no see. Inside the planet, a giant mosquito creature, completely different from its previous appearance, stood proudly in front of this mid-level galaxy powerhouse. But Jia Yan, who was about the same size as Leda, was completely different at this moment. Compared with Leda, who was only more than 20 kilometers long, Jia Yan was directly a giant. Standing in front of him, it was like looking at like a child. The length difference is doubled, which is definitely the difference between adults and babies. The difference in viewing angles is extremely obvious. Well, Your Excellency Jia Yan, I haven't seen you for a long time. Only when I saw you up close did I realize how powerful you are now. Leda was amazed and at the same time kept his attitude extremely correct, because after seeing the real person, he had an absolutely intuitive feeling about Jia Yan's current strength. Domain Lord. He was no ordinary territory lord. His whole body was releasing some kind of terrifying energy that made him unbelievable. Strong, scary. Excuse me, it's just a chance. Jia Yan smiled and looked at this being who was at the same level as himself at the beginning, and couldn't help but sigh. This gap in strength was something that even he himself had not expected. It has only been a few years. For creatures like them, things cannot be said to have changed. If Jia Yan did not come to the black hole area and enter the northern superstar with a desperate attitude, I am afraid that even if he meets Leda again now, it will be nothing more. He is a mid-level star, not much different from him. However, various deeds made him gradually get rid of his peers, and before he knew it, he was far ahead of even the Zerg Queen who used to feel extremely tall. Looking back, thinking about it, it was really a trick of fate. Your Excellency Jia Yan, even if the opportunity is given to me, I can't reach your level. You are too modest. Leda is self-aware. He understands Jia Yan's so-called coincidences, and he can't envy him, because no matter how many coincidences there are, he knows his talent. It is impossible to digest so many things in a few years and be promoted to the Realm Lord. And he is not an ordinary domain lord. He is afraid that if it is his turn, he will be overwhelmed. Jia Yan smiled but said nothing. Okay, let me show you my new Edicious star. By the way, this is my brain. I wonder if you have seen it before. I've seen you, Master. I was the one who communicated with him last time when he helped you guard the commercial star. He's a pretty good guy. Come on, young man. I'm optimistic about you. Editha interjected. Leda was surprised for a while. He looked at Edisha and felt that this brain seemed to be a little different from his previous experience. Unexpectedly, in the past few years, Jia Yan himself had changed a lot, not to mention that even his intelligence and brain have all been taken into account. This strong man is really amazing. Haha, Your Excellency Edisha, we have to deal with each other again. This time I came to the black hole area just to make a living. If Lord Jia Yan is willing to take you in, you should give me good guidance in the future. It's easy to talk about. As if she were a real senior, Edisha smiled triumphantly and talked to the subordinate who suddenly arrived. Jia Yan was on one side, and smiled slightly. How could he not know that after a few words of understatement, Leda had elevated himself to the position of his subordinate, and the profound meaning of this was extremely important. But he didn't point it out, let alone reject it. The original intention of coming this time was to accept a subordinate who was relatively trustworthy. This was also an important matter for Jia Yan, because he knew that, I am still fighting alone now, and it has become quite difficult. For many things, it is better to have subordinates to help solve it. Having a fellow villager can also give me more trust. But he thought of something and interrupted Leda and Edisha, a smart little brat, chatting with each other. Leda, aren't you following the Zerg Queen? Why did you suddenly come to this black hole area? Could it be that, you broke away from the Zerg Queen's power? For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this reading, chapter 2309, Hugging a Giant Thigh. Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 2388. You can search Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito on Baidu to find the latest chapter. Faced with Jia Yan's sudden inquiry, Leda was startled. Then, he seemed to remember that Jia Yan had left the Zerg Queen's force long before those things happened, and it suddenly became clear that he had something to say to Jia Yan. Well, Your Excellency Jia Yan, I forgot that you don't understand what happened next to our power. Alas, it's a pity that our power has now fallen apart. After hearing Leda's words, Jia Yan was shocked. After all, although the Zerg Queen's power is good and bad for Jia Yan, the Zerg Queen and most of the people in it are pretty good to Jia Yan. No matter how bad it is the Zerg Queen's power that brings Jia Yan to this galaxy. In the Central Star Territory, without them, there would be no Jia Yan who has reached the senior level of Territory Lord strength, so he feels that he still has a good impression of the Zerg Queen. Now that I suddenly heard that this force was falling apart, I still felt quite complicated. Oh? How did it fall apart? Tell me, how are the Zerg Queen and others doing now? Are there any casualties? He couldn't help but ask. As a fellow countryman who has devoted time and energy to the Zerg Queen's force, and also shed blood and sacrificed his life as a warrior, it is natural for Jia Yan to care about the people in the Zerg Queen's force. What's more, the Zerg Queen is absolutely indispensable in Jia Yan's growth path. It seems that she doesn't favor Jia Yan too much, but in fact she helps Jia Yan a lot, especially when she explains the cultivation to her subordinates on weekdays. The Zerg Queen's attitude of favoring Jia Yan is very obvious at that time, and Jia Yan often has any doubts are answered first. It can be said that Jia Yan has many noble people in this life, but the Zerg Queen is the only one who is half teacher and half friend. So he is quite concerned about how the Zerg Queen's people are doing now. Lord Jia Yan, it's hard to describe in words. As soon as Leda saw Jia Yan's attitude, he knew that this strong man was definitely not the kind of person who didn't care about past friendships. When he thought about it, he knew that even his subordinate, who had only had a little contact with him, went out of his way to coming all the way to the rescue. How could Jia Yan not care about the Zerg Queen's power? So after he clarified his thoughts, he immediately used his nearly 1,000-year-old language skills to show Jia Yan his love for the power of the Zerg Queen and his deep feelings for Jia Yan. Crying bitterly. And Jia Yan also felt the same through his description, feeling the difficulties of the Zerg Queen's power and the changes in people's hearts in recent years. Finally, after listening to Leta's words, Jia Yan let out a long sigh. Well, he didn't expect that so many incidents would happen after he left the Zerg Queen's force. However, it is not difficult to understand that more things have happened to him in the past few years, and greater changes have occurred. It can be said that a group of foreign country bumpkins came to this prosperous place where they were unfamiliar, and they still wanted to achieve certain demands of their own. It is impossible not to have changes. Things can't go completely as they wish. A group of them wants strength but not strength, connections but not connections, and support but no backing. If they want to cause trouble here, how can it be possible without being educated by reality? Even Jia Yan had to go through several ups and downs. He also became a bitch, was chased up and down, and wandered between life and death many times before he finally got his current strength. Others thought he had grown up in just a few years. To this extent, only he, the person involved, understands the bitterness, blood, and tears involved. Lord Jia Yan, after that battle, I separated from the Zerg Queen and the others. It's not that I don't want to go back, but it's useless if I go back. To be honest, the Zerg Queen's power at that time was no longer in name only, and there wasn't even anyone there. When thinking about development, most people think that as long as they can make a prophecy come true, it is enough. When Leta saw Jia Yan sighing, he also sighed for no reason. Jia Yan has a good impression of the Zerg Queen's force. Isn't it true that he doesn't? And compared to Jia Yan, he may have a greater sense of belonging to the Zerg Queen's force, but these are not the reasons for him to stay in the Zerg Queen's force. Since that road doesn't work, then the only way is to find a way. This is also the reason why Jia Yan can see Leta in this black hole area. Jia Yan looked at Leta, nodded, and did not say that he had done anything wrong, because Jia Yan himself was also the one who said goodbye to the power of the Zerg Queen. In fact, what has happened to the Zerg Queen's forces in recent years seems complicated, but it is also simple to say. It is simply that after Jia Yan left, the Zerg Queen's forces moved to another area, with the purpose of advancing to a more prosperous place in the central star field of the Milky Way, and finally finding a paradise that only belongs to them. To be honest, Jia Yan gave the Zerg Queen some flaws back then. That is, Jia Yan, a middle-level being in the galaxy, can actually find a place like the Peace Star territory in the central star field of the Milky Way, and develop his own Yin and Yang Dao power, which is the so-called Yin and Yang Dao section. When Jia Yan after Yan returned to the Zerg Queen's force, he revealed the matter a little bit, and even the Zerg Queen evaluated it. With so many powerful people in their Zerg Queen's force, if they go to an area where there are not so many strong people, they will definitely have the opportunity to control a place. It's a pity that they only listened to half of what he said, or in other words, Jia Yan didn't explain it clearly. He was in the Peace Star territory at that time. He definitely did not control a large territory, but just used the balance of external forces to create some tricks. Jia Yan did not tell the Zerg Queen that his Yin-Yang sect developed purely from a place with exhausted resources. He used the strategy of surrounding the city from the countryside and carefully maintain the limits of the strong. Only then did he develop to that point. But this gave the Zerg Queen and others confidence that they could do what Jia Yan had done, find a land without an owner, and then seize the entire star field and develop it into a territory that only belonged to the Zerg Queen and others. Jia Yan wanted to say, these guys are too idealistic. If it were that simple, when he left Gigi, the Peace Star territory had fewer resources and lower development potential, but it was definitely a good star territory. If he could develop there, maybe he wouldn't. It was time to find another chance to return to the power of the Zerg Queen. He left just because he understood that it could not last. Jia Yan thought and shook his head. From Leta's words just now, he heard that the Zerg Queen and others analyzed that Jia Yan can control a small part of a star field. They can also do similar things, and they are greedy to go to the central star field of the Milky Way for more. The center point is crowded, that is, the cake that wants to touch stronger forces. What happens after that is natural. Such a group of bumpkins rushed into the central star field of the Milky Way, trying to touch the cakes of the big forces again and again, and soon became a thorn in the eyes of many forces. What happened later proved how difficult it is for a group of outsiders to make a name for themselves in a stronger place, especially when this group of outsiders adheres to the concept of being barefoot and not afraid of wearing shoes, just for the sake of rushing. Go ahead, that's an absolute fool's errand. Every year, a huge number of outside creatures come to the central star field of the Milky Way. Each of them will have similar thoughts, but how many of them can make waves? The Zerg Queen's power is, at best, a relatively powerful part of this group of outsiders. After suffering a lot of losses and losing personnel again and again, the Zerg Queen's power soon reached the brink of collapse. What's even more dangerous is that the Zerg Queen herself suffered a certain amount of pain during a battle with the enemy. Injured, another territory lord in the force, the Black Sheep who had competed with Jia Yan back then, suddenly stood up and questioned the authority of the Zerg Queen. The two sides did not take action that time. After all, Black Sheep still had the intention of the Zerg Queen herself and did not want to cause too much trouble. But the two sides have also reached a certain situation where they are equally powerful, so the entire Zerg Queen force has become two queues. Some support the Zerg Queen, and some support the Black Sheep. Others are disheartened and withdraw from the force. Leta is one of those who make a living for themselves in the central star field of the Milky Way. I see. After many battles, did we finally end up like this? Jia Yan shook his head. The story is actually much more shocking and rich than the exclamation in his shaking head, but no matter what happened in it, the final result is that the Zerg Queen and the others have failed, or are about to fail. To be honest, no matter how exciting the story in the middle is, Jia Yan has actually expected this. Because he really arrived in the galaxy's central star territory, and as a being who was forced to break away from the protection of the forces as soon as he arrived, and began to work hard alone in the galaxy's central star territory, he felt that the galaxy's central star territory seemed relatively prosperous. The superficial symptoms of great opportunities and opportunities are much clearer than those in other Zerg Queen forces. In fact, the hierarchy here is very strict, and class mobility is far less drastic than imagined. In other words, if you are born in a big force and are the son of the leader of the force, you may be a strong person no matter what you do in the future. Even if you are not a strong person, your parents will pave the way for you. Oh no, this is different from the thinking on Earth, because if you are not a strong person, then your parents will definitely be able to take care of you for a lifetime, because there is a high probability that your parents will live longer than you. In other words, although outsiders have a better chance of promotion than the outside world, it is far less exaggerated than imagined. And if you want to come in and get a share of the resources, sorry, there are bound to be established forces competing with you. And the majority of the probability of this competition can only be your failure. After Jia Yan heard what happened to the Zerg Queen's forces, he was silent for a while. Although Leta on the side was also filled with thoughts, he didn't say anything, let alone encourage him, because he was just someone who had just declared his intention to follow Jia Yan. If he jumped up and down from the beginning, it would make people feel that he wanted to control the master. Edisha didn't speak either. Even though she looked like a child who always likes to talk nonsense, in fact, she was still an intelligent brain. With powerful calculations, she knew not to talk nonsense in such a situation, because it would only disturb the owner. Judge. Of course, Jia Yan will hesitate or have various thoughts. In fact, he himself is already thinking about some thoughts. If he does not implement these thoughts, the future will always be a psychological knot. Haha, anyway, I have been free recently and don't need to practice in seclusion or anything. Besides, with my ability to be slightly prestige in the black hole area, I am afraid there will be no danger when I go to the outside world, so what if we just take a walk? Jia Yan suddenly smiled. This smile made Leda beside him feel happy. When he said these words, he originally wanted to test whether Jia Yan was willing to go back and help the Zerg Queen force, because like Jia Yan, he was relatively satisfied with the Zerg Queen force as a whole, and he had more with many memories and friends in this force. If we can prevent it from being destroyed, then it is better not to be destroyed. And Jia Yan was actually willing to help as he wished. And there is a territory lord who, although I don't know the specific strength, but is definitely stronger than the Zerg Queen, takes action. The power of the Zerg Queen will be strengthened like never before. Because Jia Yan's fighting ability is by no means ordinary, he can be so cool in the black hole area, and when he goes outside the central star field of the Milky Way, he is destined to become the uncrowned king of a large area. Your Excellency Jia Yan, on behalf of the Queen of Zerg and so many fellow countrymen and friends, thank you. Leda expressed her excitement almost in words of gratitude. Haha, no need. You are a fellow villager. How can I, Jia Yan, not be a fellow villager of theirs? Well, have a good rest here. When the compensation from this force is delivered later, we will find a way to get out of the black hole area. Now the problem is the way out of the black hole area. Jia Yan waved his feet calmly. In fact, he felt that there was no solution to another big problem, which was how to get out of the black hole area. If we can't find a way to get out of the black hole area intact, then no matter how touching we say it now, it's useless, it's just rhetoric. He didn't want to let the so-called supreme power erase his memory just because he was to save the Zerg Queen. Ah! Mr. Jia Yan, what do you mean? Are you leaving the black hole area? You should be able to go out normally, right? I entered the black hole area through an access channel controlled by a force. It is said that I can also leave through their force, but it requires just sign a confidentiality agreement. What? When Leda said the above words, Jia Yan paused, and then his eyes suddenly fell on his face, feeling a little incredible. How is it possible that there is a force that can break the protective cover of the Supreme Being? This is impossible, tell me about that force. Jia Yan felt a little weird, because according to his original observation, there should be no such force. After all, the protection created by a high-level galaxy or above powerful person can hide even energy and giant stars, and there will be what force can break through its envelope seems a bit like a fantasy. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collection below to record this reading, chapter 2310, So What If I Take a Trip? Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, and you can see the reading record when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2389. You can search Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito on Baidu to find the latest chapter. Master Jia Yan, is this normal? I asked about the way to enter the black hole area from the outside world, and then spent a lot of money. Someone contacted me and said that there was a way to enter in the name of a member of the team that transports resources. With this proof, in the future if you want to go out, you can use it to enter and exit normally. And it seems that you can bring people with you, but you have to spend money. When Jia Yan heard this, his heart suddenly became enlightened. Because many things cannot be solved by simply closing them down. Although the black hole area is rich, because it is too tightly closed, the demand for certain external resources has become very large. If it is blocked, it will also make it difficult for some resources to reach the interior, so some resources must be needed. Normal access and signed agreements can guarantee the confidentiality level of this place to a certain extent. Moreover, everyone knows that the Supreme Being will probably closely monitor those who go out. With their methods, even if they are a little attached, no one can notice the energy reaching anyone. In this way, it is very possible to maintain several trading channels. External exchanges in the black hole area are necessary, because no matter how wealthy it is, it cannot be compared to the entire Milky Way, which is as wide as 100,000 light-years. The region is rich and external resource support is necessary. In fact, there is a pretty perfect negative teaching material, and that is the original Orion arm. In the past, the Orion arm was banned by the evolved beast seniors. Although it did not have a platform to communicate with the outside world, it gradually became synonymous with backwardness. So it can be seen how important a platform for external communication is. How could the supermasters in the black hole area turn a blind eye to this huge flaw? That's right. What I think is still too one-sided. It makes no sense and is unreasonable for such a large black hole area to still have the advantage of the central area in the center of the entire galaxy without communicating with the outside world. After Jia Yan figured it out, he immediately put aside all the messy thoughts he had before, and then chatted with the middle-level powerhouse of Leda Galaxy in front of him about some details. During this process, the external forces have fallen into a state of confusion. Jia Yan gave them a time limit, so they had to be fast. And this matter caused them quite a headache. They didn't have much experience in compensating a strong man. In this case, Jia Yan said that they should give it at their own discretion. In fact, this was the biggest problem. Give more and give less. What limit should be given? This is a headache for the outside world, including the strong domain lord. But fortunately, many of these biological experts saw through Jia Yan's expression and attitude towards the matter that the other party did not attach much importance to these compensations, so they decided to take a risk. Just look for the wealth that is easiest to get. The key is time. The time of strong people is too precious. Maybe Jia Yan doesn't value their compensation at all. He just needs them to stop wasting other people's time as soon as possible. So not long after, the territory lord who brought several merchant ships returned without the bad temper anymore. Oh, this speed is not bad. It's not like this force you said is procrastinating in doing things. Jia Yan was in the subspace and felt the arrival of merchant ships from the outside. He was a little surprised, because Leda had just told him that this force was not doing anything because of the existence of the territorial lord, and the subordinates below were always doing it because of their own interests and their own limelight. Waiting for a relationship, they procrastinate in doing things, which in turn affects the subordinates at the lower level, and then evolves into the whole force being like this, so doing things is very slow. But when Jia Yan took a look, it seemed that this was not the case. Leda was also stunned. He also felt the presence of strong men coming from the outside world. Of course, he felt even more so those huge merchant ships that were almost as big as the strong men. Master Jia Yan, we have tried our best to find the compensation you requested, and we have used it as quickly as possible to try not to delay your time. Are you satisfied? Outside, the muscular territory lord was waiting, like a prisoner awaiting sentencing. He didn't escape just now, and he didn't dare to escape, because a creature in the subspace, even one of the same level, would be much more flexible than him, let alone a territory lord who was even more terrifying than him in strength. Adisha, go and take a look. Jia Yan didn't take it seriously, and just said calmly to the little light and shadow mosquito creature on the side who was listening to his exchange with Leda. Okay. Editha shouted happily, and then she rose into the sky. In a blink of an eye, she actually reached the fifth dimension. Of course, its speed is not the real speed, but its photon communication equipment is in the outside world, so it can reach the outside world just like teleportation, without any time delay at all. This is not a matter of strength. My master is here to show me the supplies. Don't fool us with your poor quality. Hey, Adisha won't be fooled by you. Editha looked at the 40-kilometer-long muscular domain lord, and instantly transformed herself into a 50-kilometer-long light and shadow mosquito, no bigger than Jiayan, but almost smaller. Anyway, if it does this, it just wastes a little power and doesn't affect anything. Okay, Masters Hineo, please check. The territory lord's expression changed, and then he quickly changed his attitude. He no longer had any sense of disrespect towards people in Jiayan's profession. He even treated the intellectual brain that was not a living thing with respect. Ha ha ha, this kind of gem is very beautiful. It will still shine when placed on the ground of the planet. It also has energy. It's okay. Editha screamed excitedly while observing the supplies in the merchant ship. Both Edisha and Jiayan actually have a certain understanding of the energy level of materials. After all, they had just received materials from two forces and had the ability to evaluate the wealth of the forces. Moreover, such a force on the edge of the black hole area was fighting a war and had to recruit people to join, so the wealth must be even worse. So Edisha didn't wonder why the rarity of the materials sent was so low. It just looked at whether the other party used it carefully. Now that I look at it, it seems to be quite thoughtful, because these gems and other things are suitable for paving the floor of Edisha's star. There is energy in it, and it will definitely be very comfortable to practice. Of course, for a domain lord level powerhouse said, such a small amount of energy floor, I am afraid the effect will not have much impact. The key is mood, not to mention that as time goes by, the impact will definitely be a little bit. Let me look again. Oh, there are some good super energy items here, these are worth a bit of money, but your forces are still a bit stingy. Even so, they are not as good as the last time we tried to grab them, but, go ask the yin forces for them. It's more than a third of that super energy, so stingy. Edisha looked at the supplies in another merchant ship and felt that this force was too stingy. Although the master is willing to let them use supplies to calm their anger, you still have to express your true intentions. Is this all? Inducing forces. Well, Your Excellencies Hineo, if you say it's the attracting forces in the distant starry sky, please be clear. We and those attracting forces are naturally not on the same level. We cannot provide the materials that can be provided. After all, there is an essential gap in the forces between the two sides. The Yin Territory Lord is a gravitational wave system territory lord, and there are rumors that he has a backstage. How can our forces be comparable to this power? The muscular territory lord smiled bitterly. Edisha nodded, non-committal. Of course it knows that it is a fool's errand to ask this force to provide materials that are almost the same as those of the Yin force. Just as the other party said, when this force looks at it like this, it knows that it is a step behind the Yin force. Otherwise, why would one of them be there? Inside the black hole area, what about the other one who can only live in the edge area guarding the edge barrier? But understanding is understanding, and it is useless to understand. How to deal with this power needs to be dealt with by the master. After Edisha looked around at the supplies, she felt relieved again. Master, Edisha has seen it. This force is a bit clever. The materials they send are not too expensive. Even if there are expensive ones, they are relatively rare. Master, do you want to punish them? Edisha was now extremely confident in Jia Yan's fighting ability, so she immediately felt that Jia Yan was capable enough to punish this disobedient force. Have you seen it? If the difference is not too big, forget it. What we need is time. After Jiayan hesitated for a while, he said this to Edisha. It's not much different. Edisha has probably calculated that the total assets of this force may be about 10 times what they are giving now, but we are tight on time, and the most they can come up with is only one. It's less than double. But if you want this double, you will definitely have to wait for a few days. Edisha told the truth. Jiayan nodded. Of course he believed Edisha's judgment. Forget it, it's not that bad. Let's get together, Edisha, and ask them to send things to the subspace. When people leave, I will absorb the merchant ships into the Edisha star. Presumably, these merchant ships will not. Would you say you want to go back? Yeah, Eddie, tell them. Not long after, Edisha notified the other party, and just as Jiayan imagined, the domain lord didn't say a word about the problem of the merchant ship. He just asked a group of creatures to drive the merchant ship to the outside of the subspace. The previous rift, thanks to the powerful self-repair of the subspace, it had become the same as usual, but they still found the hole in the subspace that was originally torn apart by Jiayan, and the merchant ship stopped here. Boom. After a few more seconds, after all the creatures had left a safe distance, it was like a glutton that devoured everything appeared in the subspace, opening a huge gap and swallowing up these merchant ships one after another. Slowly swallowed into the subspace. All the creatures in the starry sky looked at the scene in stunned silence. They have always seen some strong people with subspace talent in their lives, but they have really never seen a subspace strong person with such strength that he can easily swallow up the huge merchant ships from the outside world. Ben. Jiayan showed off his terrifying subspace talent, not just to show off, but just to pull the merchant ship back to the Aditha planet at a faster speed. Clang. Not long after, merchant ships were gently placed on the surface of Edissa one after another, and no accident occurred to any of them. Although the things inside are not of high value, they are pretty good. Edisha, say goodbye to them and let's go. Jiayan calmly ordered Edisha, and then entered his palace directly without looking back. This made Leda behind him feel dumbfounded for a while, because as far as he was concerned, no matter which one of these supplies, they were all treasures to him, especially those super energy objects. He simply coveted them. Ruler, but Jiayan is so good that he doesn't even look at it, so he doesn't like it. Leda couldn't feel that inside the Edisha planet, there were far more treasures than the materials he saw at the moment, but they were hidden by Jiayan and his aura was hidden. Of course, even if he knew it, Leda would probably not have any small thoughts. At most, he would work harder for Jiayan so that he could exchange for a certain treasure inside in the future. Goodbye, I'm leaving with my master. If you miss me, my name is Edisha. The light and shadow mosquito transformed by Aditha flew to the outside world and roared at the powerful domain lord and a group of ordinary creatures who were waiting for the outcome of the trial outside. Then the communication projector in the starry sky did not forget, and suddenly flew into subspace and then disappeared. Slowly leaving together was the huge planet deep inside subspace. As the planet gradually left, all the creatures present, including the muscular territory lord creature, could not help but exhale a long breath, a breath of survival after a disaster. Fortunately, this territory lord Jiayan has no intention of killing them all, otherwise we would be in danger. The domain lord creature shook his head, and then became bitter. He found that he usually had a bad temper, and then often fought with other domain lords from the outside because of some small interests. After fighting for so many years, he ended up making a wedding dress for such a strong man. Although he saved his life, he still felt tired. Forget it, it's been hundreds of years since I played the role of a domain lord with a bad temper and a strong and competitive temperament. It's time to change my personality. Maybe after changing my personality, I will have a breakthrough in my state of mind. Then take a solid step toward becoming a domain lord with similar strength, right? This territory lord is still full of determination about his future. Jia Yan and others who left may not know that their arrival and departure brought physical and mental changes to a domain lord level powerhouse. In the future, perhaps such an extremely impulsive force will turn into a very powerful person. It is a peaceful force and will most likely become one of the most peaceful and friendly forces in this area. Of course, even if Jia Yan knew about it, he probably wouldn't think anything of it. Because, for a senior territory lord, he doesn't seem to want to take care of the affairs of ordinary territory lords. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collection below to record this reading record, chapter 2311, The Method of Entry and Exit. Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, and you can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2390. You can search Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito on Baidu to find the latest chapter. There seems to be something wrong. In my mind, this kind of territory lord is already an ordinary territory lord, and it is a territory lord that is far weaker than me, but, the Zerg Queen's force that we are going to help now is the strongest among them. It is also the invincible existence that I have always felt a lot of pressure on, the Queen of the Zerg. It seems, maybe, probably, it seems, she is also at this level of strength. At most, she is only a little stronger than this territory lord. Inside the departing Edessa star, Jia Yan seemed to have only thought of this now. He was stunned. Then he took a long breath and smiled bitterly in his heart. Because after being promoted to territory lord, even though he already knew in his heart that he had surpassed the Zerg Queen, because the two sides had no contact, the impression of that existence still did not change much, and he was still as majestic and great. But because of Lada's appearance and invitation to Jia Yan to help the Zerg Queen's forces, the link between the two parties seemed to be opened again. Therefore, Jia Yan finally re-evaluated the already vague idea of being strong, and then he clearly realized the fact that he was stronger than the Zerg Queen. It's a sensory shock that will last until you actually meet the person, and long after that. That's all, I have to get used to this feeling, because my promotion to Territory Lord has really changed too many things. Not to mention that Black Sheep can no longer be my enemy. Even the Queen of the Zerg, I can surpass his strength in one breath. Level. Jia Yan sighed. Master, we have entered the 10th dimension. Adisha interrupted at the right time, allowing Jia Yan to react. Well, it doesn't take long to enter and exit again. It's not too far there. Jia Yan nodded calmly. On the other side, Leda was already sighing and lingering over the scenery in the 10-dimensional space. He is not a creature gifted in the subspace, so naturally he knows very little about the deep scenes of the subspace. Now that I have the opportunity to come to the 10th dimension where ordinary creatures cannot come, I immediately enjoy watching it. Under the protection of the Edessa star, everything was in order. It was much easier and smoother than when Jia Yan used the Edessa backpack to enter 10 degrees. Leda really lamented that although they seemed to be talented, Jia Yan, who had offended the Black Sheep and had an unruly temper, so they didn't think he could go far, has now not only reached the strength he is today, moreover, the subspace planet he created in the Zerg Queen's power has now become a treasure that is more suitable for the identity of a domain lord. After being amazed, he saw the supplies all over the ground. There are also countless robots, under the command of little Edisha, carrying supplies in all directions. Just looking at Jia Yan's indifferent attitude towards these materials, we know that he doesn't value these materials at all. It also shows that there are definitely more and better materials hidden in Edisha. That's right. The way for a domain lord creature that is far beyond ordinary domain lords to obtain supplies is too simple. With its strength, it is easy to deal with forces like the one just now. If you want supplies, just find someone to take advantage of. He was quite envious, because when he saw the kind of power just now, he looked up at it like he was looking at the sky, but Jia Yan, who was almost at the same level as him at the time, now killed that kind of power at will. The gap between the two sides has become as different as heaven and earth. But he has reluctantly joined the planet Jia Yan. Looking at him, he still looks like a loner. If he behaves more diligently and respectfully, maybe he can become a full-time official in the future and become one of the few subordinates of Lord Jia Yan? Just thinking about it makes me feel motivated. Jia Yan was in the Edisha Star and watched Edissa handling supplies for a while. He soon felt bored and returned to his palace. In fact, he was quite interested just now and wanted to chat more with Leda, a friend he knew before. For example, he wanted to talk about why he became so strong, and also about the past, when he first joined the Zerg Queen's force, the other party. How do you view yourself? You can also talk about your future prospects like friends. Generally speaking, it's just chatting and spanking. But soon, Jia Yan found that he was not in that mood. First of all, Leda is not familiar with him, and they have a first-level relationship. Secondly, Leda's current strength is really far behind his own, and chatting with him always feels uninspiring. Ever since, Jia Yan gave up chatting with him and returned to his training hall. And Leda is also happy that there is no strong person standing on top of him, which would make him restless. The gap between the two sides has been vividly displayed during this period of time. Even though they were still friends who could chat in the past, the status gap between the two sides is now too great. An extremely tyrannical domain lord and a mid-level galaxy powerhouse, it's impossible to talk and go together. It didn't take long. About a day later, Edisha yelled. "Master, we are here." "Are you here? Very good, Leda, get ready, let's go out and inquire, especially to know how to get out of Edissa Star." "Yes, Lord Jia Yan." When Jia Yan walked out of the palace, he found that Leda didn't know if he had figured out something during this period, and his attitude instantly became like that of a subordinate. He was quite respectful, as if he was his perennial subordinate. Generally, Jia Yan didn't say anything, but his heart moved. He instantly understood what this acquaintance was thinking. After the two sides came to a stop on the Edisha Star, they flew out of the star together. The 10th dimension is actually so scary. Fortunately, Mr. Jia Yan is supporting me, otherwise my life would be in danger. When Narita entered the real 10-dimensional space, he was almost swallowed up by the distortion of the outside world. Fortunately, before that, an astonishing power enveloped him, protecting him safely within it. The master of this power is naturally Jia Yan. Not only in the 10-dimensional space, Leda followed Jia Yan all the way out, until he reached the 6th dimensional space, and even the 5th dimensional space. He felt a great life threat, just like with his mid-level galaxy with strength, it would be difficult to enter even the 5th dimension. This feeling got slightly better in the 4th dimension, which made Leda take a deep breath involuntarily. After all, the feeling of being controlled by someone is very uncomfortable. Fortunately, Jia Yan didn't want his life or anything. He used his brainwave power to help him get out of the dimension along the way, which was considered thoughtful. Puff. In a slightly populated area of the galaxy, passages from space to space were opened that lead directly to the outside world. "Get out." Accompanied by such a faint sound, two figures stepped out from the gap that might shock those who witnessed it. The owners of these two figures are naturally Jia Yan and the powerful former Zerg Queen Leda, who was brought here by him. "Is this here? I'm not familiar with it. I need you to lead the way next." Jia Yan looked at Leda and said to him. "Okay, Master Jia Yan, I will definitely lead the way." Leighton nodded and quickly looked around, preparing to complete the task assigned by Jia Yan this time. Although it is just a task of leading the way, this is the first task Jia Yan has handed over to him, which can be said to be quite important. There is a light door over there. I wonder if Mr. Jia Yan can see it? Suddenly, Leda pointed to an extremely distant starry sky through his memory. Oh, I saw it, it's right there, as expected. Jia Yan followed his direction and nodded calmly. When he arrived just now, Jia Yan had sensed the existence of the world over there, so he must not have been surprised. The two parties did not enter the subspace again, because there are many investigation methods nearby. It is not good to enter the subspace too deep. If it is too shallow, wouldn't it be quite embarrassing if the whereabouts of the majestic domain master creature are known? So it is better to just fly there openly, because it seems far away, but in fact it is not that far. You can always fly there in 2 or 3 hours. The sudden appearance of these two behemoth figures naturally quickly entered the eyes of the person in charge of this area. So when Jia Yan and the others spent 2 or 3 hours flying slowly and contentedly to the luminous area, there were already a group of creatures in this luminous area, waiting to greet them from a distance. This is respect for the strong. A territory lord creature, even in this black hole area, has extremely good combat power, not to mention that this place is a fringe area. When you see a territory lord creature, you should respect it. We, the alliance of forces in the peripheral areas, welcome your arrival. A creature who is at the top of the intermediate level of the galaxy. It seems that his combat power is not that of an ordinary intermediate peak of the galaxy. He is very respectful to Jia Yan. Well, we want to leave the black hole area from here. Please tell me the rules. By the way, I still have a planet in subspace. It's best if you can help me think of a way. Jia Yan said calmly. In the process of flying here, he roughly knew the knowledge of this place, and now he felt confident. To put it bluntly, the rule is to give money, and then, naturally, the strongest will come first. Coincidentally, compared to ordinary galaxy class, Jia Yan has quite a lot of money. And his strength should also give him enough face. Sir, there are actually no rules. Just pay according to the regulations. In addition, we have an agreement to sign. Of course, for you, this agreement is almost invalid. Of course, we also hope that you can do your best to control our black hole area. Keep it confidential, thank you. I will go and help you make arrangements. The strong man at the peak of the middle level of the galaxy smiled and spoke to Jia Yan. After speaking, he flew to one side and began to arrange the passage of Jia Yan and the passage of what he called the subspace planet. This process went so smoothly that Jia Yan was a little surprised. Leda was dumbfounded. You must know that when he entered the black hole area from the outside world, he suffered a lot. There were also a lot of people asking questions like the Earth passing through customs. I almost couldn't get in, but I gave him money and was let in. But now it's better, with the domain lord level expert, when passing through this passage, it seems that there is no need to check at all, let alone Jia Yan. He won't ask for so many things, and he doesn't make things difficult, just arrange it directly. Is this the benefit of being a domain lord level powerhouse? The ostentation is really big. Leda couldn't help but look at Jia Yan, who was calm and composed. He was really envious in his heart. He also knew that Jia Yan was not just an ordinary domain lord, but also an extraordinary domain lord with astonishing strength. Ordinary domain lords are easily defeated by him. I don't know if it was because of the shocking things that Jia Yan did to the grumpy domain lord before. In short, not long after, the strong man at the peak of the middle level of the galaxy appeared again, this time with a slight look in his eyes. Exclamation, and panic. My lord, we have opened a special passage for you. In addition, here are some local specialties from our alliance. Please accept them as a farewell gift. Behind him was the gift of a small battleship. As soon as he felt the energy on it, he knew that the gift was of good value. Well, Leda, Please come forward and accept it. Jia Yan doesn't care what the reason is. In short, people are kind-hearted, so they can't refuse, right? Yes. Leda was very happy to get Jia Yan's order, which meant that Jia Yan truly treated him as a subordinate. What made Leda even more happy was that when he flew forward and was about to use his brainwave power to control the battleship, he discovered that the mid-level creature from the galaxy escorting the battleship had interviewed him not many days ago. Chief Interviewer. Leda didn't give this guy any money back then, otherwise how could he pass through the light gate not far away? Sir, it's you? Who is the one behind you? Haha, it turns out to be your excellency. I haven't seen you for a long time. This is my lord. You took care of me last time. I will personally tell my lord about you later. Maybe he will come up and talk to you when he is happy. Say hello. Don't. This friend, no, this sir, the territory lord has such a busy schedule. Don't disturb this sir. By the way, the last time you entered the customs, the people below seemed to be doing something. I made a wrong figure and overcharged you for a part of your entry money. Let's do this. I will refund it to you now. No, I will refund you double the amount. After all, we made the wrong case and caused you mental damage. We must pay double the compensation. Money, you see. When the middle-level galactic man who escorted the battleship heard that Leda said that he wanted to tell Jia Yan about him, he was so frightened that he immediately begged for mercy, and then obediently offered Leda's death with both hands. The blackmailed money was doubled, just to prevent Leda from gossiping in front of that person. After all, who would be willing to offend a territory lord or a terrifying territory lord who easily defeated a nearby territory lord based on intelligence? Such a territory lord may be a senior territory lord, and a senior territory lord, even if he is placed among the superstars, will have a terrifying place in the power. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this reading. Chapter 2312. The ostentation is really big. Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2391. You can search Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito on Baidu to find the latest chapter. In the black hole area, there are not really that many super powerful people. A senior domain master can completely crush the forces in the area on the edge of the black hole. Therefore, they did not dare to offend Jia Yan at all. They just wanted to quickly spend money to eliminate the disaster and send this terrible plague god away. Haha, thank you very much. It turns out you made a mistake. I thought it would cost so much. Your professional ethics are very good. Thank you. Leda looked at the middle-level strong man in the galaxy who was very different from last time and became respectful, and finally showed a smile. He took the money and goods, and then controlled the warship to fly back. At this moment, the thought that surged in his heart was to hold Jia Yan's thigh tightly. Even for a character with such a good reputation in the black hole area, he would be a fool if he couldn't seize this opportunity. By the way, if you reach the power of the Zerg Queen, you have to be careful of other galactic levels. Many of them are better at sneaking around than you are. If you are robbed of your position by them, it will really be too late to cry. Thinking of this, Leda suddenly became nervous. He decided that during these days of being alone with Master Jia Yan, he must have good dealings with him and be a good licker, otherwise his future status may really not be guaranteed. Of course, for Jia Yan, he doesn't care whether Leighton kneels down and licks him, but in the end, he is satisfied with having a subordinate who can control him well, so even if Jia Yan knows his thoughts, he can't. I won't refuse anything, after all, I also have such needs. Boom boom boom. Not long after, under the nervous gaze of a group of forces guarding the light group, a huge planet surged out of the subspace. It's such a big planet. This territory lord is really a very powerful existence. Only such an existence can be worthy of such an amazing subspace planet. Who says it's not the case? If it were me, I wouldn't dare to travel on a planet like this because others would miss it. Bullshit, you haven't seen that this gentleman is a creature with subspace talent. Without his blessing, how could this planet fly so fast? Let me tell you, first of all, you must have this kind of strength to have such a planet, don't do it the other way around. A large number of creatures were saying complimentary words to Jia Yan as best they could. They respect the strong, even if they think deeply about it, because this is what is engraved in the bones of all powerful creatures in the universe, and generally speaking, it cannot be changed. This is like the aura of a star on Earth. Whatever the star says or does wrong, when fans see it, it is all right and can be explained. The strong have an even more exaggerated effect in the universe. Whatever they want to do can be explained by the word strong. Even if you do bad things, others can say that you are not as strong as the strong. It's that simple. Just explain it simply. A world where the strong is supreme is so pure. Lord Jia Yan, here are the supplies that the top mid-level star of the galaxy gave me just now. I forgot to add them. I heard your conversation. This is your own thing. The compensation is also your own. Just put it away and follow me to do things. You don't have to wrong yourself. I don't lack these things. On the Edisha planet, Jia Yan opened the external barrier of the Edisha planet. The outside world cannot see inside, and no one dares to explore the brainwave power, so what happens inside is difficult for the outside world to see. Among them, Leda had already begun to kneel and lick Jia Yan as hard as he could, especially the raw materials he had just received, and he was actually willing to donate them. Fortunately, Jia Yan also reciprocated the favor, knowing that he couldn't ask for this kind of thing. Otherwise, although he could have accepted it, it would have chilled others' hearts. The most important thing is that Jia Yan's current strength doesn't care about such a small amount of material. What he wants is really easy to get, but ordinary things are of little use to him, and useful ones are hard to come by, so how can Jia Yan care about such a trivial gadget? Yes, thank you Master Jia Yan. Leda accepted his supplies angrily, feeling secretly happy at the same time. After all, he didn't lose anything this time, and he was flattered by Jia Yan, which was very satisfying. Wow, Leda, you are really bad. You asked the master if you wanted it, but you didn't ask me if I wanted it. Are you looking down on me, Lady Adisa? Edisha suddenly flew out beside Leda, shouting loudly, as if Leda was really a bad guy who did all kinds of evil. Leda was startled, and immediately looked up at Jia Yan, only to see Jia Yan looking at her with a half-smile, and full of doting care for Edisha. Thinking about Jia Yan's past style, it seems that it can be seen that he cares deeply about Zineo, just like his own family. Leda made a decision immediately. No, Lady Edisha, I have not forgotten you, sir. I originally planned to send it to you later. I wonder what you like. Feel free to choose. Leda is still not so willing to dedicate everything to Edisha. For this kind of thing, you can't blame him for looking down on Edisha. She is just a brain. What's the use of those materials for cultivation? It's better to leave him Leda, at least make the best use of it. Edisha wants this, and this. The little light and shadow mosquitoes that Edisha turned into flew around in the sky, and then pointed out something that made even Deleta smile bitterly. They are not expensive gadgets, just mechanical clocks and the like, which are quite common in the central star field of the Milky Way. Leda's purpose in collecting these gadgets is just to have a spare for his original battleship. It's a pity. Unfortunately, the battleships were gone, and now they were snatched away. He originally didn't want them back. After all, they were all trash. Unexpectedly, he was targeted by Edisha. At the same time, he also discovered that the brain is different from living things after all. If you want to please Edisha, it may only cost a small amount of money. In this way, today's Leda is determined for the future because of his rescue and what he has seen and heard at Guangmen. He, a kneeling licker who aims to kneel and lick, not only wants to kneel and lick Jia Yan himself, but also to kneel and lick Jia Yan himself. Do a good job of kneeling and licking the little Ji Now Edisha. Anyway, what this Ji Now sir wants is nothing more than some Ji Now technology supplies, which seems like a trivial matter to a strong man. Boom 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 boom. When the huge planet approached the light group suddenly seemed to have received some order. Suddenly, it expanded several times in size, becoming able to accommodate the Edisha star and barely pass through. Jia Yan was surprised, but when he thought that this barrier was made and operated by the legendary powerful Tai Sheng, he didn't dare to look at it more. He just stood on the planet respectfully, not daring to. Zayaji gradually followed the Edisha star and passed through the light group. The outside world is the real ordinary starry sky, where the central star field of the Milky Way is located. I'm out. I'm finally out of that energetic place again. There's really a big difference between the outside world and the inside. As soon as Jia Yan got out of the barrier, he suddenly felt a burst of energy changes. The energy in the black hole area was really huge for him, but in comparison, after getting out of the barrier, he felt that the central star field of the Milky Way, which should be considered a good place of energy, actually feels like something is still unfinished. Unhappy, this energy is really weak. Jia Yan found that he was a little bit naughty. You must know that he not only entered the black hole area, but also stayed in a giant star that was exaggerated beyond imagination for several years. Compared with the northern giant star, this star in the center of the Milky Way, this place is like a child's play. It doesn't even have 1/10 of the energy saturation of the northern superstar. It can be said that it is dwarfed by the giant. Oh, it's out again. Fortunately, the villain did not gain anything in the black hole area. He actually met Master Jia Yan again and even got rescued by him. It's really a blessing and a misfortune. Leda, who was beside Jia Yan, I don't know if he was flattering or sighing, but he just stood beside Jia Yan and sighed lightly. Jia Yan looked at him. Okay, this black hole area is nothing. Next time I will take you to visit some of the big stars. That kind of place is the real holy land for cultivation. What? Master Jia Yan, have you ever been to Superstar? This does not mean that Superstar is extremely dangerous, but there are many opportunities. Sir, is this your unpredictable ability? That's right, I trained to the Territory Lord level from the Northern Superstar. Of course, don't think so much. There are many resources in the Superstar, and there are also many dangers. I'm not sure about opportunities, but one thing can be said. Definitely, that means no matter where you are, even if you are among the superstars, if you don't have the corresponding abilities, you will still end up dead. Do you understand what I mean? Jia Yan smiled and said meaningfully. In fact, he can see that the strong man in front of him seems to be hidden deep in his heart. In addition to his admiration for Jia Yan, he is also a little envious of Jia Yan's adventures, and may even have adventures if he can meet Jia Yan. Later, he will also have the idea of becoming as powerful as Jia Yan. This kind of thought is not good. Jia Yan needs to be enlightened. Of course, he does not think that being envied by this temporary subordinate is a bad thing. It has no impact on him anyway. He is just trying his best to avoid it in the future. When this subordinate encounters danger, he will misunderstand that it is his opportunity, thus depriving himself of a subordinate whom he can command fairly satisfactorily. Yes, Mr. Jia Yan, I have overthought it. That's right. Places with more resources are destined to have more strong people, and there may even be more dangers. But Mr. Jiayan, I really care about superstars. I'm curious, if you have time, please introduce me to me. That's no problem. After remembering some of the superstars that Jiayan told him, as well as some small insights on cultivation, this mid-level powerhouse in the galaxy seemed to be a changed person. In the following days, he treated Jiayan and Edisha. He responds to requests and listens to both of his opinions no matter what he does. Of course, Jiayan had no intention of pretending to be the master. He just hoped that no one would disturb him and allow him to practice and conceive. So Leda can be considered happy and leisurely, and even Edissa will not order him for no reason. After all, he is an intelligent brain and does not have so many boring thoughts that are common to living creatures, nor does he have the idea of bullying others. Tisk, tisk, it is said that the energy is weakened after leaving the outside world, but inside this Edisha planet, it is exactly the same as in the black hole area. It is basically a holy land for cultivation. How did Master Jiayan release the energy on this planet? How many energy blocks are there? After one day of practice, Leda stopped the practice process. His strength is that of a galactic mid-level. If he were to let go and absorb it, it would also cause a huge loss of power on the planet. However, he didn't see Jiayan say anything and just let him absorb it. Jiayan naturally doesn't care anymore, because his own energy absorption speed is more than 10 times that of this strong man, and he has so much compensation in hand, which is at least enough for him to use for several years. This 1/10 more the amount of consumption is nothing. Besides, if you want people to work hard for you, you have to ensure that you are full and you are not willing to eat full, so it is better not to feed your subordinates. But this is his own idea. Among other forces, there are still relatively few domain lords who think this way. The subordinates raised by others need to generate income by themselves. In short, they will not let go of their inventory like this. If you give it to your subordinates, it will just feed the idle people. Of course, Jiayan doesn't care for idlers either. As much as he uses things, he needs to do as many things as he wants. For Jiayan, this is also the idea he is adhering to. If Leda only knows how to use it but cannot come in handy at the critical moment, Jiayan would not raise such a guy, and would even make him spit out what he swallowed. In short, there is a turbulent situation on the planet Edisha. The practice of the two powerful men has caused seasonal changes in the airflow on the planet. From the perspective of the entire planet, it is like a storm. Unfortunately, the storm did not have much impact. Because of the suppression by strong people, the planet outside is not that simple. If it is suppressed a little, no matter how big the storm is, it will disappear. In this way, Edisha controlled the Edisha star, and after exiting the light gate, she entered the subspace, and entered 10 subspaces in one breath, starting a long voyage. During this period of sailing, Jiayan woke up twice, both times because he went out to relax. And every time, no matter how deeply Leda fell into a state of cultivation, he would wake up quickly, follow Jiayan around, and tell some jokes and interesting things, although he could not help Jiayan with his cultivation. Although he was very busy, he still brought some joy to Jiayan's boring sailing process. At least having such a subordinate is really not a bad thing for Jiayan, because he has been at home for too long without a normal creature around to talk to, and he himself is afraid that his mentality will change. What should I do if I become a lonely and eccentric homebody? For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this time. Chapter 2313. Have you been to Superstar? Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2392. You can search Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito on Baidu to find the latest chapter. However, the relaxing days of casual chatting gradually began to change as the voyage got closer and closer to the destination. Jia Yan was actually okay. Thinking that he had left the Zerg Queen's force in embarrassment and was almost forced to leave, he felt a little weird, but that's all. But Leda was different. He had many friends in the Zerg Queen's forces. Now that he had brought back a super powerful fighter, he began to worry about whether those friends of his had died in the battle. After all, when he left, the Zerg Queen's power was really dangerous. Otherwise, a mid-level galaxy like him who had a good impression of the Zerg Queen's power would not leave the power at will. We're getting close, Edisha needs to break. Editha flew around the planet and yelled loudly. But it doesn't need to scream. The two major creatures on this planet are all powerful people above the middle level of the galaxy. Even if Edisha falls apart, nothing will happen to them, let alone an emergency stop. In short, it didn't take long before the Edisha star gradually slowed down and began to stop little by little in the 10-degree subspace. Then it gradually sank from the 10-degree subspace to the 9th and 8th degrees. It was not until the subspace of 3 or 4 degrees that Edisha stopped sinking outward. In a place like this, let alone Jia Yan, even Leda, as long as he pays attention, he cannot be hurt by the subspace and can enter and exit at will. Therefore, the Edisha star stops here, which not only facilitates access, but also provides a certain degree of concealment, which can be said to complement each other. Leda, are you sure this is the place where the Zerg Queen's force temporarily resides? Jia Yan asked Leda calmly. Yes, Master Jia Yan, but that was nearly a year ago. I don't know what it is like now. There is a high probability that the Zerg Queen's forces have left this place. After all, they are only here temporarily. Leda hesitated for a while, then sighed. Thinking about the Zerg Queen's force, everyone had great ambitions at the beginning. However, after entering the central star field of the Milky Way, they encountered more difficulties and obstacles along the way. Everyone became exhausted and more people left, including Jia Yan. Such geniuses all left the central star field of the Milky Way not long after they first entered it. Anyway, later on, the forces of the Zerg Queen who had ventured deeper into the central star field of the Milky Way began to become less enterprising. To some extent, everyone just wanted a place to stay. When he left this force, it was the Zerg Queen and the others who agreed to fight for half a year in order to get a temporary foothold in this area. This allowed me to regain my strength a little bit. It is a pity that the Zerg Queen at that time had been injured, and her combat effectiveness was not as good as before. The black sheep had become alienated from morality, and seemed to be incompatible with the spirit. The entire Zerg Queen force was close to the critical point of disintegration. Until now, Leda has not felt anything bad about the Zerg Queen's force, but until now, he has not regretted his decision to leave the Zerg Queen's force. Even if he hadn't met Jia Yan, he would have made his own decision about his own path forward, instead of following the Zerg Queen's forces that were doomed to collapse and possibly even be destroyed. Puff. Puff. Inside the subspace, the two creatures moved out together and flew out of the subspace. Outside the subspace, there is an area that is far more open than the black hole area. After all, the stars in the black hole area are close together and have a lot of energy. It is quite common for powerful people in the starry sky to occupy some meteorites. But here in the central star field of the Milky Way, it is not so shabby. Ordinary creatures occupy the meteorites. There are few, but they can only be found in areas close to some big stars. How can ordinary meteorites and the like be inhabited by people? So it looks quite depressed. Even though it is much better than the Orion Arm, which is a backward area with no life for dozens or hundreds of light years, it still doesn't seem that popular. This area is located in the middle of the central star field of the Milky Way. Around this starry sky, it is different from what we used to call the distribution of forces. There are several forces co-governing. Of course, they are not so harmonious, and they also have very specific divisions of governance zones. But overall, they are all unanimous in their external expansion. When we first came to this area, we joined a force that was very interested in external expansion. It was precisely because of their external expansion that they had the capital and willingness to invite us. Leda told Jia Yan the information he knew in the past. As for what happened next, he didn't know. He only knew that there were so many forces in this area, and the master of this force who invited them was a person who was originally stronger than the Zerg Queen. Existence, he was not afraid of any backlash from the Zerg Queen's force, and just allowed the people from the Zerg Queen's force to join. Then, just as everyone feared, the Domain Lord began to let them go out to fight in large numbers, and gradually used various methods to fight. To divide the power of the Zerg Queen, it seems that she wants to completely annex this power into her own power. After all, the Zerg Queen is not said to be strong, but at least she has a good territory lord, plus a territory lord who has just been promoted for a few years, but can still look forward to the future, as well as more galaxy level and other powerful people with good actual combat experience. For this force, acquiring them will speed up its expansion a lot. Let's go online and check the intelligence first. Isn't this area not allowed to connect to the internet? Yes, this is like a closed force. Is it militarized management? Jia Yan originally planned to use his smart brain to connect to the internet and check the information as usual, but he unexpectedly discovered that the network in this area actually refused to connect to the outside world, and even the internal network was quite strict. In other words, this force's strict management of the network may be related to its militarized management force. Master Jia Yan, I still have their account here, let me take a look. Leda was more straightforward. He took out his own brain and logged onto the internet. Although he was only given the permission of ordinary people, he was able to search for a lot of information. Sir, I understand, the power of the Zerg Queen is now, Psi. After Leda looked at it for a while, he let out a long sigh. How's it going? Jia Yan was slightly unhappy. This guy seemed to like to titillate people. This was not a good hobby. It would be very uncomfortable to talk to him in the future. It seems that he also understands his shortcomings. After Leda said half a sentence, he quickly followed up with the next half. The Zerg Queen's forces have been largely disbanded. What? What is the specific situation? Please tell me. Jia Yan was slightly startled, and then quickly asked this question. Leda also seemed to feel quite depressed because of the information he saw, and he read the news on his brain in a bad mood. It turns out that it was reported in the news that some leaders of the Zerg Queen's force were enthusiastically communicating with the domain owner of this force. However, the report of this force deliberately divided the Zerg Queen's force, saying that the Zerg Queen's force was the head of state should be the black sheep, the queen of the Zerg. It seems that she is still recovering from her injuries. After all, it is not easy for a domain lord level combatant to recover from injuries. It is very common for them to recover for several years or even hundreds of years. In the reports of this force, Black Sheep seems to have been regarded as the leader of the Zerg Queen's force, while the Zerg Queen's status as a serious head of state has gradually faded away. Aren't you leaving yet? This is good news. It saves us having to look for it again. What do you mean when you say that the Zerg Queen fell apart? After Jia Yan finished listening, he didn't quite understand the taste of it. He just felt that Black Sheep must have robbed a lot of the rights of the Zerg Queen during this period. It wouldn't be wrong to fall apart. My lord, my judgment is not without reason. Look here. Leda pointed out a certain article of news. Jia Yan looked at it and read it carefully, and suddenly felt strange. It turns out that this report said that the Zerg Queen was recovering from her injuries in a place far away from this area of influence, but that place was no longer under the jurisdiction of this area of influence. Do you mean to say that the injured Zerg Queen left here with her men and went to other places to heal her injuries? That's right, Black Sheep also brought a lot of people here. If you said it wasn't falling apart, what is it? Leda smiled bitterly. He felt that if he really remained within the Zerg Queen's power, he really didn't know who he should follow after the decomposition some time ago. No, Black Sheep has always coveted the Queen of the Zerg. How could he give up so easily after following her for so long? Jia Yan shook his head, feeling that he did not believe in the existence of a black sheep, and would easily give up what he had been pursuing. This is the obsession of the strong, and it seems to be related to strength. A strong person will not make a decision easily, but if he makes it, it will have an impact on his mentality, not to mention that Black Sheep is in front of many strong men revealed their thoughts on their faces. Even the Queen of the Zerg knew his obsession. How could he give up so easily now? I don't know either, but I feel like it's not as simple as we think. Leda shook his head, only feeling depressed. After he left, the Zerg Queen's power was broken down into two parts, the Zerg Queen and the Black Sheep, as he thought. This was so disappointing. Jia Yan also sighed. When he first joined, he felt that such a terrifying and huge terrorist force could turn into a half-disabled force so easily. This shows how the central star field of the Milky Way can change people's hearts. In the place where the Zerg Queen is powerful, with the strength and charisma of the Zerg Queen herself, such a thing would not be possible. But when we arrived at the central star field of the Milky Way, there were too many strong people who surpassed the Zerg Queen. Personal charm must be possessed by strong people with a certain level of strength, so the cohesion of the Zerg Queen herself dropped instantly. Not only that, but she was also injured, which would make others reluctant to follow her. Haha, Black Sheep? It's a name I haven't heard for a long time. Jia Yan's eyes flashed with strange colors. Leda looked at Jia Yan, and then asked tentatively, Master Jia Yan, what do you think we will do next? I think, since we are here, the Black Sheep is not far away, or you can meet me in person, friend. Black Sheep is an old friend to you, why not say hello to this force, or even. Leda did not continue, but it could be heard from his attitude and tone that he wanted Jia Yan to have revenge and revenge. He believed that with Jia Yan's current strength, this force would be easily crushed. Even if the Territory Lord was more powerful than the Zerg Queen, he did not believe that he would be even more powerful than the current Jia Yan. To be honest, Leda still doesn't know that Jia Yan is a senior domain lord, but he understands that Jia Yan, who can easily rescue him from the hands of the bad-tempered domain lord, is definitely a person he cannot terrible territory lord as imagined, and there is another thing that is even more terrifying. That is Jia Yan himself, a creature with subdimensional talent. This is an absolutely huge super advantage. The characteristic of subspace creatures is that they are difficult to catch. It is useless even if you are stronger than them. Instead, you must have a strength that far exceeds that of this subspace strongman. As for the local domain lord, at least he knew the opponent's strength when he left. He was much stronger than the Zerg Queen in a state of complete victory, but this was a lot, and definitely not to the level of Jia Yan now. So the suggestion he gave was to let Jia Yan go and seek revenge from Black Sheep. If the Territory Lord wanted to stop him, he should also give him a good education. Jia Yan took a deep look at Leda. This guy would not encourage him simply from Jia Yan's point of view. Either he wanted to vent his anger for the Zerg Queen or those suppressed by the Black Sheep, or he himself had been suppressed by the Black Sheep in the past. Otherwise, how could he leave the Zerg Queen's force? In short, this selfishness is not serious. Is also considering Jia Yan to some extent, so it is acceptable. But no need, let's go find the Zerg Queen and the others first. I care more about the lives of the Zerg Queen and the others than the Black Sheep. I hope they won't have any bigger troubles after these defeated soldiers leave this area. Okay, that's right. Mr. Jia Yan has thought carefully about it. It's really not something I can compare to. Not long after the two behemoths flew out of this area, they tore open the subspace again and plunged into it. Not long after, a burst of energy surged inside the subspace, and the Edicious star dived into the subspace. Deeper inside, the entire area seemed as if nothing had happened, and it became ancient and peaceful. However, the traces and aura of the two powerful men, especially one of them, who surpassed the average domain lord, were definitely not so easy to remove. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this reading. Chapter 2314, Do You Meet Old Friends in Person? Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, reading record, and you can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2393. You can search Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito on Baidu to find the latest chapter. Less than 3 hours after they left, a detection machine flew over and stretched out its detection instrument. Not long after, this detection instrument, using the highest level alarm coordination system, transmitted the signal quickly. It is impossible for Jia Yan and Leda to take care of all this. Even if they knew about it, they would treat it as indifferent. After all, after gaining strength, what do strong men need to worry about when doing something? This is like Jia Yan flying around on the Edissa star. In the past, when he was at the middle level of galaxy, he would be chased and killed while riding such a huge Edissa star. But this time it was different. Whether he was in the central area of the black hole or in the central star field of the Milky Way, he was running rampant, regardless of whether he passed through any forces. Is it because he dived deeper? Or is it because the strong ones have become weak and cannot detect Edisha? Wrong. The reason is simple, just because Jia Yan has become stronger. It was so strong that those strong men immediately detected the Edisha star, and then sensed Jia Yan's aura that exceeded that of ordinary domain lords. They suddenly stopped one by one and became afraid to pursue it. This is the terror of a strong man. This is why Leda felt as if she had re-recognized the world along the way, especially following Jia Yan, and felt quite happy. It took him a year to go to the black hole area. This was relatively fast, but it was still full of difficulties and obstacles, and dangers occurred several times. Following Jia Yan, not to mention that Jia Yan has the Edisha star that can travel in subspace, it is almost impossible to have too many dangers and troubles by following him, which makes people feel quite comfortable. It's not just Leda. Jia Yan himself is actually no different. This was the early stage after he had just been promoted to Territory Lord and had just emerged from the black hole area. The respect and deterrence of a powerful Territory Lord in the outside world was also a kind of visual impact for him. Of course, people who already know their own strength will not be as shocked as Leda, but it is inevitable to feel some sigh and pride in their hearts. The force I passed just now was the surrounding force of the previous force. The domain master must have discovered me, but he only retracted the brainwave power at the first moment of contact. In fact, this behavior is showing weakness, and this Territory Lord feels weaker than any Territory Lord I have seen in the black hole area. Really, the strength will be different in different regions. This is still in the Milky Way central star territory. Even in the relatively midterm places in the central star field of the Milky Way, it actually feels like this. If you go to more external areas, I am afraid that the level of the powerful will drop even more. Jia Yan looked back at the domain lord level powerhouse he had just come into contact with, and shook his head helplessly. He knew that his strength must be much stronger than the average domain lord, but he did not expect to be so much stronger. a domain lord of the galaxy's central star region, did not dare to raise any hostility towards him. Jia Yan has no idea of provoking such a small person. Although similar areas and starry skies were all restricted areas to him when he first came to the Milky Way central star region, to him now, they are just restricted areas. It's just a small place, and it's not worth provoking because it's too troublesome. Even if you ask for compensation, you have to wait for time and can't harvest much material. It's a waste of energy. During the voyage, due to the uncertainty of the location of the searchers, the Odysseus star continued to sink. Although Jia Yan did not come forward in person, Leda served as a major communicator and Odysseus cooperation, gathering intelligence, analyzing the situation, and making judgments were all done by them. For Jia Yan, he found that accepting a subordinate was liberating for him. Haha, this Leda is really good at doing things, and most of his ideas are also very popular with me. It can be seen that he is a good candidate for his subordinates. This is the life that a strong person should live. I used to do. What's the point of having to do everything yourself? In the palace, Jia Yan silently observed everything happening outside, and then sighed involuntarily. He lamented in the palace, while Leda lamented in the outside world. You must know that it is completely random for them to fly out of the subspace to inquire about information at will. If they go to a place of influence, if Leda himself arrives, he will worry about whether the other party has malicious intentions, and then see if he should avoid this place. A sphere of influence. But following Jia Yan was different. After he arrived in this area, he flew out directly and neatly. Then, followed by the Odysseus, he flew out of the subspace, and then he randomly found a local strongman and asked, according to the news, some local troops or strongmen will notice his arrival, and many of them will be malicious. But without exception, these beings, when strongmen or troops came, would be frightened to death by the power in the subspace behind Leda. Some forces even changed their faces and turned to Leda. He greeted them with greetings and gave them gifts. Leda suddenly came to the limelight. Lady Odysseus, I just asked what the Black Eagle Force is. They said they have never seen that kind of female Zerg creature, nor have they seen anyone similar to the strong one in the Zerg Queen Force. On this day, Leda still went out, asked about outside forces, and then returned with some disappointment. Although he has become very high status, Jia Yan has not completed what he told him to do, and he is a little worried about whether Jia Yan will no longer trust him because of his incompetence in doing things. If such a thick thigh was not hugged tightly, it would really make him extremely disappointed. Ah! The message is cut off again? Aditya is really angry. Should we ask the master? The master may have a better way. In the Odysseus star, after listening to Leda's words after returning from the trip, she suddenly screamed in frustration and wanted to ask Jia Yan for his opinion. It was originally said that the Zerg Queen's force had left the force where they were temporarily staying, and they were heading in the right direction. However, after searching all around, they could not find anyone. They have been wandering around this area for a month. Oh! In the past month, the surrounding forces have understood that around their forces, there is an extremely powerful territory lord, leading a subordinate to patrol around. Moreover, he does not have any ill intentions towards anyone, but just wants to ask about the situation of a certain force. This situation is all public information to the surrounding forces. After all, it cannot be said to be too confidential. A strong person, even a relatively powerful territory lord, did not threaten this situation. Naturally, they are not worried about the negative impact of making it public regarding the safety of living things in an area. But now, this strong man is constantly traveling in the subspace, and all the people and strong men understand the general purpose of his inquiry. Some time ago, the remnants of the Zerg Queen's force fought against the neighboring force. You know, when the Zerg Queen came to this area, there were enemies chasing her behind. However, when they got here, they did not settle down. They kept wandering between several major forces, constantly picking up mercenaries. Such war affairs, so he is quite famous. Their arrival can be regarded as adding some unstable factors to this area, so many people and high-ranking officials are deeply impressed by them. But the problem is, it seems that in the past few months, or since 1 or 2 years ago, it seems that their news has gradually become less and less. I only heard that the Zerg Queen's force has gradually disintegrated into one force. It only took 2 parts and then disappeared. Why would such a force have an extremely terrifying strong man come here to search for their traces? Could it be that the so-called Queen of the Zerg, who said she came from this barren land, is actually the junior of this big shot? All creatures are speculating on the relationship between Jia Yan and the Zerg Queen, and everyone guesses that it is a relationship between juniors, because the existence in the subspace, although he has never shown his face from beginning to end, is definitely an extremely powerful territory lord. If an ordinary territory lord wants to cross this distance between levels, it will definitely take a long time to practice. And even if the Zerg Queen is as old as this galaxy's central star territory, then they are all considered young people, so this mysterious strong man must be their elder. I didn't expect that the Zerg Queen would have such a backing. But when she was in our area, we didn't make it too difficult for her. She just became a mercenary to help various forces fight. For us, we have to resist the invaders, right? So what we did was absolutely useless. Wrong, it depends on how this strong man makes his decision. If he insists on trying to touch us unreasonably, we are not easy to mess with. A more powerful territory lord wants to dominate the central region of the galaxy's central star territory. You must know that behind our power, there are powerful forces deep in the galaxy's central star territory as our backing. There are even some strong people who are backed by strong people in the black hole area. Territory lords who can establish power in the black hole area, even if their strength is weaker than us, it is possible to climb up to the stronger ones. Sex is even bigger, and even we don't dare to mess with it. That's right. If we got tired of staying in this area, we would have gone to the black hole area long ago. The territory lords in the central star field of the Milky Way, everyone knows that the black hole area is a real holy land for cultivation. For us territory lords, even if it's dangerous there, we won't die casually if we run there. After all, we are territory lords. In short, we don't need to worry too much about this matter. The strong man has not appeared yet. He seems to have terrifying brainwave power, but it may be just pretentious. We don't need to provoke him. If he wants to touch us, we won't. Just back off. For a time, the entire area was in turmoil. A group of strong men didn't seem to have much reaction to the sudden arrival of Jia Yan and his party. In fact, they had done a lot of discussions and situation simulations later, but in the end they all made a decision. That is to allow this territory lord, who seems to have an extremely powerful aura, to move around in this area. Anyway, he has not done anything offensive. In this way, it is regarded as respecting the strong and allowing him to operate in this area. Let's do a good exploration inside. As for the information about the Zerg Queen, they really didn't know it, and no force would deceive Jia Yan. Jia Yan and Leda went up and down the area and asked several times, but still found nothing. At this moment, in addition to these powerful people, some of Jia Yan's old friends also gradually became aware of this matter. Second leader, this is what happened. There is a strong man with mysterious origins who is inquiring about the power of our Zerg Queen in this area, but he is inquiring about the Zerg Queen, not us. Huh? There is such a strong person coming to inquire about our information? Who is it? One day, inside a force that seemed extremely majestic to outsiders, a creature with a huge sheep body covered in pitch black listened to the information from his subordinates with a strange expression. This strong man is the black sheep. Time has changed. The black sheep, who was just promoted and had unstable strength, has gradually stabilized his strength in recent years. No matter from any aspect, the black sheep seems to have completely stepped into the realm. At the main level, all the sense of level instability has been completely digested. At this moment, Black Sheep was sitting on his throne, listening to the information from his subordinates with a very solemn expression. At this time, he was considered to be attached to the force that Jia Yan and the others came to investigate before, and his position quickly climbed to the position of second boss, that is, the second leader. It can be said that his status is extremely lofty. Of course, this is only because of his good strength, and he has also led many powerful Zerg Queen forces to join him. Otherwise, an outsider, even if his strength is at the level of the weakest domain lord, it is absolutely impossible to obtain this kind of status. We really don't know the news about this person, but this domain lord should be a subspace creature, because he has been hiding in the subspace, and every time he has the brainwave power of a powerful person from outside, when probing, he will release a terrifying pressure far beyond that of ordinary domain lords, making the other party afraid to probe anymore. Second space? Why subspace? Is it a coincidence? Or, when he heard the word subspace, Black Sheep seemed to be frightened and stood up from the throne. His whole demeanor could be said to be almost crazy. You must know that when he was just promoted to Territory Lord, he was extremely confident and accepted a battle challenge from a strong man who was not as good as Territory Lord. But the problem was that he who could not control the power at that time was actually beaten by that person. The strong man used the rules to win a small victory. This was a complete nightmare for him, a creature who had just been promoted and had the highest self-confidence. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collection below to record this reading record. Chapter 2316. Is it a coincidence? Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, and you can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2394. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Find the latest chapter. After those days, his promotion was about to come to a halt. Fortunately, his promotion was almost completed. It took him several days to finally stabilize his mind, and then he began the process of energy stabilization. Precisely because he has had extremely serious failures against subspace creatures in the past, this black sheep creature really hates hearing the word subspace, not to mention that he is a subspace creature. It's just that this time, this subspace talented creature is an obvious territory lord, and not an ordinary territory lord. Not even the many territory lords in this area dare to confront him head-on. The terrifying territory lord, even if he hates subspace creatures, he doesn't dare to show it. This is a kind of existence that he knows is absolutely impossible to defeat unless he fights. That's right, Lord Black Sheep, this mysterious territory lord is a subspace talent. What's more surprising to us is that the intelligence also stated that this mysterious territory lord does not come forward to communicate with others every time. He mainly comes forward to communicate with others. Creatures that communicate with others, we actually know them. Huh? Do you know me? Who? Black Sheep heard the intelligence officer below's coquettish way of speaking, and couldn't help but fall for it, so he quickly asked. You also know this person, his name is Leda. What? Leda? The one who used to be Jia Yan's partner and had a good relationship with Jia Yan? Didn't I force him to leave the Zerg Queen's force? Why did he come back again? And, he also brought the inexplicable return of the powerful mysterious domain lord? This. Lord Black Sheep, we don't know anything about this anymore. The huge black sheep-shaped creature suddenly fell silent after hearing this, and then made no sound for a long time. Then you didn't reveal the whereabouts of the Zerg Queen and the others, right? No, but there are many people in our camp who still respect the Zerg Queen. I can't vouch for these people. I know, just step back. Anyway, we will wait and see what happens. Jia Yan had no idea what Black Sheep was doing among the forces that had taken refuge there. But he knows one thing, that is, he is treated like a fool in this starry sky, asking people everywhere, let alone knowing the whereabouts of the Zerg Queen's forces. No one admitted to knowing about the news that had appeared in this area. This made Delata unhappy, and he came to Jia Yan's Qingzhou palace several times to complain to him. Jia Yan didn't think it was anything. This kind of thing was not too surprising to him at all. Even if he was strong, it was natural for the locals to deceive a strong man who came rashly. Even if the same approach must be taken when encountering similar things. What's more, Jia Yan and his colleagues have slowly found the answer. The Zerg Queen and her party did not go too far because their current abilities no longer supported them from sailing far away. Black Sheep and his group of traders probably knew this and allowed them to leave. Master Jia Yan, the Queen of the Zerg, should have found a place to hide and recuperate with the people who were still under her orders, but their actions should all be under the supervision of Black Sheep and others. In other words, their current situation must be in a state of semi-imprisonment. We must find ways to help them as soon as possible. On this day, Leda couldn't help but express her opinion to Jia Yan and beg Jia Yan to help as much as possible. Jia Yan looked at this newly acquired subordinate and nodded calmly. He was originally here to help. Although he was not comfortable with the fact that his newly acquired subordinate still had deep feelings for his old master, when it came to his affection for the Zerg Queen's force, he himself also had a deep affection for it, so there was less grudge. A lot. Don't worry, according to analysis, these forces have joined forces to deceive us, either to give face to the forces that the Black Sheep has taken refuge in, or because there is something they all want in the Zerg Queen's forces, otherwise they would not be able to joining forces. According to my opinion, the latter is more likely, and if it is because of information or wealth, the Zerg Queen will not be too injured, so there is no need to worry about their safety. Jia Yan's judgment was more calm and objective. This has something to do with the fact that he has always been less emotional and more emotional. Of course, the greater possibility is that his feelings for the power of the Zerg Queen are shallower than Leda's. Huh? Wealth. It may be like this. Although our Zerg Queen force consumed a lot along the way, we also we exchanged a lot of wealth for our work, and some of them are high-end items that are not easy to cash out. There are even things that can only be used by high-level experts, although I don't know what they are, but they definitely exist, and maybe those forces are eyeing this kind of thing. Leda's words verified Jia Yan's guess. So my analysis should be correct. Leda, don't worry. Since they won't attack the Zerg Queen until they achieve their goal, then we cannot pursue them so closely. Why not play a carbine? Jia Yan mysteriously revealed his plan. After a month or two of threatening everyone in this area, the extremely mysterious subspace planet powerhouse finally gave up searching in this area because it seemed that nothing was found. Under witness, Leda suddenly penetrated into the subspace, and then the planet in the subspace gradually dived into a deeper area, and even slowly accelerated, and it should have left this vast area. That kind of huge planet, after starting up in the subspace, will definitely not be able to stop soon. Judging from its acceleration, it is very likely to rush out of this area. So this news quickly spread to all the forces. For a time, everyone in the high-level forces in this area was excited. In the Milky Way, there are naturally strong people. They also know it, and they also know that the combat power of a strong person can definitely easily and quickly destroy an area like theirs. Although they are not sure whether the subspace creature has this kind of strength, they are quite vigilant, so when the other party is left to dominate this area, there is no force to stimulate others. Of course, even if it is stimulated, many of them understand that dealing with such a being is probably not something that one force can handle. At least with his terrifying brainwave power and the advantage of subspace talent, who among this force can deal with it? Since you can't deal with it, you can only pretend to be a grandson. Fortunately, all these grievances and frustrations are over, and this strong man is finally gone. But there are also many forces who feel frightened by the appearance of this powerful man. There is such a great god hidden behind the Zerg Queen. If they continue to deal with the Zerg Queen, won't they possibly have to face the wrath of this powerful man in the future? Especially several forces that are not deeply involved in this matter. The benefits they can share are not much. Now they have directly emphasized that they will no longer participate in this matter, even if the mysterious strong man returns in the future. None of them can guarantee whether they will leak information to this powerful man, because they are simply outsiders. Regarding the development of this matter, the interested forces, especially the forces that have taken refuge in Black Sheep, have a tough attitude. They are already a powerful force that has seriously expanded externally. At this point, how can they retreat? Black Sheep, those things that the Zerg Queen said are what I need very much. Now that mysterious strong man has also left. As the person in charge of this matter, you should be responsible for me, and you will personally do it again. Make a trip to that place and ask your original leader to hand over what we need. As long as you hand it over, we can ensure their safety. Yes. In that force that was serious about external expansion, a territory lord said calmly to another territory lord below. The territory lord below is none other than Black Sheep. At this moment, Black Sheep is like the most loyal subordinate, even more loyal than the mid-level subordinates of the galaxy in other forces on the side. Look. He cannot express his loyalty, because otherwise, even if he is a territory lord, he will be unable to move forward in this force. Even though this force only has a territory lord level powerhouse, Black Sheep is just the territory lord who has just been promoted not long ago, can be suppressed by the top 3 middle level galaxies in this force. In other words, Black Sheep is the weakest territory lord. If he goes up to the first territory lord, who was stronger than the Zerg Queen, took action, and Black Sheep couldn't resist even one of his moves. So how could he dare to use his identity as one of the only 2 domain lords in his power to dominate? After all, he was a newly surrendered creature and no one trusted him. Well, you don't have to be too afraid. The mysterious territory lord's brainwave power looks scary, but his actual combat power is something that no one knows. If it weren't for me, I don't want to offend a space leader. A capable person would have already decided a winner with him. The most powerful territory lord at the top calmly calmed people's hearts. In fact, this is also true. This domain lord is quite confident in his own strength. The reason why he dares to expand in this area is that after his last breakthrough, his own strength has already become the first in this area. The feeling of one person, that's why he dared to do this. As for the outsider, although it made many forces feel frightened, and he once felt the power that made it difficult for him to breathe when that force passed nearby, but he still didn't think that one's own fighting power will be inferior to that of the opponent, and even if there is a slight disadvantage, it is impossible to be defeated so easily. Yes. After receiving the peace of mind pill from the new leader, Black Sheep felt a little more at ease. In fact, he had already known about the appearance of the creatures in the space a few days ago, and he was indeed panicked after he was concerned about the Zerg Queen's power. A few days. Now that he had received the affirmative guarantee from the Master of Power, he suddenly felt more confident and knew that his safety should be guaranteed. Not long after, within this force, there was a fleet that was not weak, plus a small group of super strong men, all dispatched. The leader is Black Sheep, and those around him, whether it is the fleet or the team of strong men, are all members of the strong men within the original Zerg Queen's force. They are all members of the original Zerg Queen's force, and now they have completely defected to the Black Sheep. The sheep, and 1 or 2 of them, lost respect for the Zerg Queen. This is what happens to a strong man after he loses power. The Zerg Queen is still online at least, but she is injured. In addition, the pressure of survival in the vicinity is increasing. They just openly join forces with other translators. This shows that the world of the strong is like this. It's so straightforward. If you are strong and capable, people will follow you. But once you fail, those people will probably run away with others in the blink of an eye. In the world of the strong, there are not so many true friends. Lord Black Sheep, when it comes to subspace talents, do you still remember the one who had subspace talents back then? Don't talk nonsense. What's the point of mentioning what happened back then? Do you still think that the existence of space talent this time is really related to that guy? How is it possible? He is a fellow who came out with us, and you also know that there are no relatives or friends in the central star field of the Milky Way. How could you possibly know such a being? You wouldn't think that this time the powerful man in space would be him, would you? If you think so, then I really doubt that you thousands of years of practice, where have you gone? Black Sheep interrupted the words of the subordinate next to him, making him extremely embarrassed, and thinking about it, it was indeed the case. From the point of subspace, he actually thought of that person, who was obviously a territory lord. He is still an extremely powerful territory lord. Must have nothing to do with that guy. How could he think of him? It's so embarrassing. A strong man in the middle level of the galaxy, Jia Yan, he is also as whimsical and unrestrained as a child. This strong man only felt embarrassed. The followers around him also looked at this strong man with sneers. They felt that they were really speechless. They dared to think of a very powerful domain lord who had only disappeared for a few days. The imagination of that one of 2017 is really no joke. There is no doubt that this group of strong men, including the one that Black Sheep is talking about, is the Jia Yan who is almost silent in this team led by Black Sheep. This former member of the legendary Zerg Queen's force used his peak mid-level combat power in the galaxy to fight against the Black Sheep who became the territory lord. He won a small victory, although he made use of the rules and subspace talent. He was able to achieve this with all kinds of advantages, but it was a small injury to Black Sheep who had just been promoted and couldn't control himself well, but it was still a win. He slightly inflamed Black Sheep's face. Now no one dares to say Jia Yan's name directly, because Black Sheep will be extremely disgusted. In order to facilitate reading next time, you can click collect below to record this reading, chapter 2317, do you still remember the one who had the talent for subspace? Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, reading record, and you can read it next time you open the bookshelf arrive. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2395. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito, find the latest chapter. When the so-called mysterious territory lord appeared this time and knew that his ability was in the subspace, and that there was a subspace planet for living in the subspace, they all thought of Jia Yan. If it were just subspace, everyone wouldn't think so much about it, but that planet is really exactly the same as the so-called Edisha planet that Jia Yan created in the Zerg Queen's power, right? In particular, there were a few strong men who were at the scene when the territory lord appeared. Although they felt the terrifying brainwave power, which was earth-shattering that they could not resist, they also benefited from the brainwave power. Found a sense of familiarity, and used brainwave power to observe from a distance, and found that the size of the planet was really almost exactly the same as the Edisha star they knew. Therefore, Some people are wondering whether the so-called subspace talented domain master has something to do with Jia Yan. Of course, no one would think that that person is Jia Yan himself. He was originally a peak mid-level star in the galaxy. He was promoted to the top mid-level star a few years ago. How could he be promoted to the realm in such a short time? Host. What's more, he is an extremely powerful territory lord, so this is simply impossible. Therefore, gold is impossible. They are wondering whether it was Jia Yan who was wandering in the universe, and then met the powerful subspace talented domain master. Then he became the disciple of this subspace talented domain master, and even the planet was given to this mysterious territory lord, and then this territory lord drove the Edicious star to search for the Zerg Queen in the starry sky. The purpose should be to repay the favor to his apprentice, or to take revenge. This is what everyone is afraid of. Fortunately, the powerful territory lord is gone, otherwise they would be restless. Don't worry, I know what you are worried about. In short, this time we must quickly open the door to the Zerg Queen and others, and, it is best to make her mine, so that there will be no barriers between us in the future. Find a place quickly. If we leave, even a powerful territory lord will not know where we have gone. Okay. Lord Black Sheep. Among the people who followed the original Zerg Queen of Black Sheep, there were actually many who had a little attachment to the Zerg Queen and others, especially respect for the Zerg Queen, and many of them were still very strong. But after arriving at Black Sheep, they gradually discovered that even though Black Sheep, the leader of this group of people, was gradually claiming power, he didn't seem to be so powerful every day. She became one of her own, which made many creatures dare not speak out, and became less friendly to the Black Sheep's senses. But the choice has been made. Since they have followed Black Sheep, they must help Black Sheep realize his rise, because there is no turning back. Even if they are dissatisfied with Black Sheep, they cannot go back to find the Queen of the Zerg over there. Besides, Black Sheep is a bit arrogant and has a little wishful thinking about the Zerg Queen. After all, he has been working with the Zerg Queen for a long time and has been a high-level official. He can be said to be the second in command of the Zerg Queen's power. His ability to handle things and manage battles is also extremely good, so as long as you don't make big mistakes by following him, there shouldn't be much wrong. Therefore, even those who were dissatisfied with Black Sheep had no choice but to accept his excess. Some even changed their minds and began to think of ways to see if they could seduce Black Sheep with the Zerg Queen and add fuel to the flames. If the Black Sheep gets what he wants, and the Zerg Queen recovers from her injuries in the future, maybe their Zerg Queen force will be reunited into one, and then there will be both the Zerg Queen and the Black Sheep, and the Zerg Queen force will surely become a very powerful force again. It's a pity that they have a good imagination, but just because they think this way, it means that they don't understand the Zerg Queen at all. Even Jia Yan understands that the character of the Zerg Queen is not the kind to admit defeat. If Black Sheep wants to use coercion, it may only end up with a dead end. In any case, even if the Zerg Queen is injured again, she will never lose the strength of the territory lord. If Black Sheep dares to take action and there is no territory lord to protect him, it is really possible for the Zerg Queen to fight against the territory lord. He made a draw. In that case, one can imagine what Black Sheep would do. In short, after the subspace domain lord left, the area returned to peace again. But amid the calm, there seemed to be a sense of turmoil. Especially on this day, the second branch of the Zerg Queen's force, which is also the place that claims to be the genuine Zerg Queen's force, flew out with a group of battleships and several powerful men. This turbulent feeling was even more noticeable to others. The fleet and the strong men who left quietly never expected that in the subspace behind them, there was a strong man with a strength at the middle level of the galaxy, and another strong man with a strength at the stellar level, silently coming from the subspace. Follow their moves. Lord Jia Yan is really powerful. He can actually guess that they will be dispatched. It's nothing to me, it's just human nature. After experiencing a big crisis, everyone will check to see if there is anything strange about the prey. In this space, the mid-level creatures in the galaxy are Leda creatures who followed Jia Yan. As for the star-level powerhouse, he was also a creature that didn't look that big. He didn't look that familiar at all. It could even be said that it was his first appearance. But Leda treated him with immense respect, as if he regarded him as his absolute leader. Even if the opponent's strength seems to be weaker than him. In fact, this is not because there is something wrong with Leda's mind, but that the stellar powerhouse beside him is a clone of Jia Yan. This clone is a clone that Edisha took the time to make after improving herself, using so many resources sent from the outside world. After all, with its improved computing power, it is fully capable of making Jia Yan's clone. Of course, the effect and combat effectiveness are probably not better than those of Jia Yan's original carefully crafted clones, so they can only be used barely. However, even if the technology is not strong, it can match the combat power of Jia Yan's current senior domain master. Even if the clone is weak, it will definitely not be too weak. If Jia Yan uses the subspace channel to transmit his own brain waves again, when the power is transferred to the clone, and assisted by the combat experience of the real body, the combat effectiveness of this clone cannot be underestimated. Besides, even if he is really weaker than Leda, he is actually a powerful territory lord. How can Leda dare to look down on him? Leda, this move you are thinking of is not bad. This is probably called East Attack West. Jia Yan praised Leda, who was so confused when he heard it that he almost fell into despair. Fortunately, he understood that this was something he couldn't do. Jia Yan was his immediate boss, not to mention that Jia Yan was the one who was most effective in this plan. Lord Jia Yan is overly praised. I just did what I could. Besides, the details of these strategies were all done by you. I just mentioned it at the time. You are still awesome. There really wasn't too much flattery involved in what Leda said, but he really meant it. The previous move was because Leda lamented that if they stayed in this area, people in this area would probably not dare to touch them even if they knew the information about the Zerg Queen and others. Therefore, Jia Yan's heart moved slightly due to these words, and he decided to leave the area, and then quietly came back with his clone. The reason why he doesn't use his real body is also very simple, because after all, although his real body is very powerful and comparable to a senior domain lord, in essence he is still a newly promoted domain lord, controlling his breath. It cannot be perfect in this aspect, so if the real body is close, it will still easily cause the aura to leak. Ordinary creatures will naturally not be able to feel it, but a powerful territory lord will definitely know it. Oh, okay, don't say anything like this anymore. Let's catch up and take a look at them. Don't let them leave us too far behind. Jia Yan not only sincerely admires Leda, but also has a certain flattering way of speaking. He is not that cold. He has been praised too much by others. I believe that every strong man is like this, so most of the time, he will not be praised for his simplicity. A single word of flattery makes me moved. The reason why strong people are strong is not only because they are powerful, but sometimes it also means that they are good at life. For example, Leighton knew that he talked too much at the moment, so he would spend less time thinking about it in the future, and he also understood that in the future, at some point, he must flatter Jia Yan again and maintain his image of always praising him in Jia Yan's mind. This way, his favorability towards Leda will be the highest. In short, the two of them were in the subspace, using Jia Yan's subspace talent to maintain the speed of progress, maintaining a not too close and not too far distance from the departing small team, and followed them all the way. I saw a large group in front of them, walking in a straight line, as if there was no doubt that there would be people following behind them. Haven't we been here before? Could it be that a group of people from the Zerg Queen's force are in this direction? Jia Yan followed along, feeling a little confused, but finally, After the crowd in front of them stepped into a large chaotic nebula material that they had not searched for, they suddenly became enlightened. That piece of nebula material is composed of interstellar material that may form stars in the future. It has a high temperature inside and is full of meteorites and the like, so it is quite chaotic. Not to mention the strong ones, even the various refugees and so on who are mixed in the interstellar. If you are willing to live inside, it is almost impossible for other creatures to go there, except for treasure hunters and some bandits who may temporarily settle in it. I should have thought at the beginning that they might be hiding in a place like this. Jia Yan smiled bitterly. He has a fixed mindset, because it is impossible for a strong person above the star level to be willing to go to such a bad area, and it is even more impossible for a powerful person at the domain lord level. But now it seems that the remnants of the Zerg Queen's force are really likely to go to that kind of place. Even if it is too shameful for a territory lord to go to such a place, they can be said to be desperate. If they don't go to such a place, the place may be completely destroyed. Moreover, in such a place, the temperature is high, and there may be a large amount of high-level energy in the prototype astrolabe. Super energy cannot exist, and there will be a lot of dangers. But for a territory lord, the dangers here are not that high, but barely speaking, you can get the maximum return with the minimum investment, and it's not a bad hiding place. Of course, the most critical point is that there are a large number of biological soldiers guarding the entire chaotic interstellar land. I am afraid it is not that the Zerg Queen forces do not want to leave, but that they cannot leave. I didn't expect that the queen of the Zerg tribe would be forced to this point. In Jia Yan's impression, the Zerg Queen was still the incomparably heroic heroine from the beginning. The last memory left to him was that she was still extremely tall and had unparalleled fighting power. But in the blink of an eye, a few years later, when he learned about her, she was actually like this. The desperate situation is really sad. But I understand that for such a proud being, her nature must not have changed. I can imagine that if the situation were the most dangerous, she would face death with a smile. Jia Yan, who is extremely talented, has always admired this female creature. There is no feeling of affection between men and women, just pure admiration. He didn't understand it before, and thought that in the universe, there was not much difference between females and males in terms of strength, but only after he got out of the Orion arm did he understand, even outside the universe, even in such a prosperous central star field of the Milky Way, there are still far more powerful males than females. No matter how good the cultivation environment is, there will be a huge difference between males and females. It can be seen that female creatures want to cultivate to be powerful. How difficult! Therefore, for a female domain lord like the Zerg Queen, and a genius type, the road must be difficult and troublesome. Even such an existence has to support a force and take care of a large number of subordinates, let alone it is probably very difficult for a female creature or a male creature to do it. But the Zerg Queen did it. This is what makes her admirable. In short, I am back now. Although it is impossible to maintain the extremely strong image in the impression of the Zerg Queen, I can help her. Maybe she will have more opportunities in the future, and it is possible for her to catch up with me. On the road to becoming stronger in the future, there must be a good motivation or opponent. Thinking about this, Jia Yan followed Leda and entered the chaotic land of interstellar matter. As expected, within this land of chaos, there are a large number of bandits and the like. In areas with marginal material stability, there are also some weak creatures who are barely surviving here. However, the black sheep subordinates who led the way did not stop in the outside world. After all, the size of such an early star formation astrolabe is also extremely large. It may be several light years away, so it is difficult to find the right place. It is very difficult to find some specific base of existence among them. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record the reading record of this time, chapter 2318, the majestic queen of the Zerg is also forced to this point. Come to cheateon.com to subscribe, and you can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2396. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito, find the latest chapter. Anyway, they seem to know the location of the remaining creatures of the Zerg Queen extremely well. Oh, I actually found such a large area of interstellar material, which is as big as a planet. It seems that it was put together urgently. Jia Yan and Leda were inside the subspace, observing from a distance, and then they saw a group of black sheep subordinates, entering almost the center of the astrolabe material, and found a star that was still sharp and angular, but was constantly condensing and rotating. Stars. This star is obviously made up of a lot of interstellar meteorites and other materials, and there must be a strong person who took action. A large amount of material turned into a complete large planet, about the size of the Earth, but because it is relatively simple to put together. It has not turned into a round planet due to its rotation, but has such a messy shape that it is rotating. What is even more weird is that the planet that rotates like this does not rotate very fast. Generally speaking, because irregular, such a star would rotate very fast and have violent geological activities, but it seems to be stabilized by some terrible force that stabilizes the geological activities and rotation. If we ignore it and it is not sucked into the embryonic star in the center of the interstellar, a weird geological planet may be born in the future. If life is born on it in the distant future, maybe the life will wonder why its home star has their form at the time is uncertain. Of course, it is too early to talk about such distant things at the moment, not to mention that there are too many powerful people in the central star field of the Milky Way. The strange stars they interfere with the formation are simply as numerous as the sand on the sea. One more is not much. Ruka? You actually have the nerve to come to our door? What are you planning to do this time? When Black Sheep's subordinates arrived, powerful creatures suddenly rose into the sky on this planet. This is a monster that looks like Godzilla, and it is much larger than Godzilla in movies on Earth, exceeding 30 kilometers in length. He was one of the 3 giants in the Zerg Queen's force, excluding the Zerg Queen. His strength had reached its peak, a powerful man who had reached the peak of the middle-level galaxy. It's just that the existence that was almost on par with the Black Sheep back then is now riddled with scars, and there are serious injuries everywhere. And if he doesn't use the galaxy-level items better, his injuries will definitely last for a long time, even until his death. There will be little possibility of relief. Even so, among the strong men on the entire planet, he was still the one who came forward. It can be seen that other existences are either insufficient in strength or have injuries that are more shocking than him. The one called Ruka is the middle-level galactic strongman sent by Black Sheep. At this moment, even if he is only a middle-level galactic man, he is much weaker than the Godzilla creature in front of him. But there was no fear at all. Not to mention that the Black Sheep and the powerful local forces are behind him, but that at his current peak state, he would not necessarily lose against the Godzilla creature in front of him. He has the capital to be arrogant. Haha, Your Excellency Zykan, long time no see. When I invited you to join my Black Sheep branch, you refused. Now that you are in a situation, why bother? Damn it, I want to join Black Sheep's forces. Don't say whether I am willing or not, just say if I join. Black Sheep has been fighting with us for decades, will he not do anything to me? Even if you ask me to believe it, it will be difficult. The Godzilla creature on the other side was none other than a peak mid-level powerhouse in the galaxy named Western Kun. He was also a giant within the Zerg Queen's force who could be said to be on par with Black Sheep. But now, after the sunset, this strong man is left with only an extremely old body. Scars and pain torture him all the time. When he thinks of so many existences under the planet, the injuries are even more serious. He felt a little sad about the incomparable queen of the Zerg. Ruka, you should also know that people like Black Sheep are unlikely to have the ability to achieve great things. Why do you need to join such a person? Her Royal Highness the Queen is good to us, and she has amazing potential, plus the ability to strategize. It's also very impressive. Why do you? Zykan spoke very earnestly to his former colleagues in front of him. Shut up. Unexpectedly, before he could finish his words, he received a cold stop from the other party. Zerg Queen potential? Haha, that was before. In the countryside, her talents and abilities were indeed good. But in the central star field of the Milky Way, apart from other things, among the many strong people we have encountered, which one is less talented than him? How many of them are weaker than her? In addition, you are talking about her ability. This makes me laugh even more. A female is a female. If she is really capable, why does our Zerg Queen force today become such a heavy casualty, and then almost completely destroyed here? The end of total annihilation? Although His Highness the Black Sheep may not be as good as the Zerg Queen in the overall situation, he has his own character and knows how to be flexible and flexible. Although he is now committed to another major force, I believe that he is someone who has the ability to lead us out of the path of fellow villagers. For a moment, Ruka's words made Zykan on the opposite side speechless for a while. He also wanted to refute. After all, he hated Black Sheep. Besides, as an old rival, he would definitely not end well if he joined Black Sheep. That's why he insisted on being the Zerg Queen. Stay tuned, but the problem is, the Queen of the Zerg once acted so strategizing and powerful in front of them, as if there was nothing in her chest. But after arriving in the central star field of the Milky Way, she has been leading this group of strong fellows to travel here and there. In the end, not only did she not get a better harvest, she even turned into a desperate situation here. In fact, the Zerg Queen cannot be blamed. She also has no experience in staying in the central star field of the Milky Way for a long time, and she is an outsider. Foreigners are not that easy to mess with, and since they want to come here to do big things, the probability of running into obstacles is naturally very high. Failure is normal, but success is an accident. But the problem is, no matter how reasonable the failure is, it will definitely be regarded as incompetent. Whether it is the world of ordinary creatures or the world of strong people, what matters is the result. If the result is not good, it is incompetence and useless. It's just impossible to get understanding and recognition. The same is true for the Zerg Queen. Under normal circumstances, she is naturally very good. She feels like a powerful strategist. She is extremely reliable no matter what she does. So coupled with her talent and combat effectiveness, everyone will be more agreeable. But not anymore. She herself was injured, and her subordinates also suffered heavy casualties. In addition, there was the betrayal of a traitor like Black Sheep. Now it can be said that one defeat has turned into a total loss. Seeing that Zykan was speechless, Ruka, the strong man from the Black Sheep side, continued to persuade this strong man tirelessly. Lord Zykan, have you figured it out? Actually, in addition to wanting to see how our fellow villagers are doing, I also heard the words of Lord Black Sheep. He said, Lord Zykan, you and although they have been fighting for a long time, this is just a fight between strong men, fighting to improve their strength. He himself still values you very much, especially your ability. He said that he needs a helper like you very much. Besides, Mr. Zykan, you also understand that Mr. Black Sheep is now a territory lord. The resources and reputation required by a territory lord are not comparable to those of you, a mid-level peak of the galaxy, so there will be no more conflicts with you. You don't have to worry that he will think you are a threat, because a middle-level peak of the galaxy wants to threaten a domain lord. This is a false proposition. As a result, during this period of time, having seen the existence of so many strong men, you should understand what I mean. This mid-level Ruka galaxy doesn't seem to be that strong, but his mouth is quite powerful, especially in front of a strong man who is stronger than himself. His words are so powerful that he almost gets excited. But at this moment, under the planet, there was a shocking roar that suddenly sounded. Ruka, if you don't want us to take action, get out of here. Ruka felt an earth-shattering sound coming to him, and he quickly retreated dozens of kilometers before he regained his footing. Looking around, under this patchwork of planets, there is a palace. The palace is huge. Inside is a creature at the top of the middle level of the galaxy. Standing at the gate of the palace with eager eyes, staring at him who is coming. Those who persuade to surrender. Seeing this, 11-kun, who was a little moved at first, suddenly came back to his senses and his expression became firm. He firmly believed that Black Sheep would not have any good opinions towards their two former enemies, let alone any good treatment. That's why he insisted on following the Zerg Queen. Originally, the strength of the Zerg Queen was far superior to today's Black Sheep. She just suffered serious injuries in the last war. Besides, this no matter how much Ruka said, the Zerg Queen's strength in the central star field of the Milky Way was greatly reduced, but for so long, although there were some domain lords that she could not defeat, there was no one-sided battle. This means that the Zerg Queen with unlimited potential will have a chance to turn around as long as she can recover from her injuries in the future. Ruka, if you are just here to persuade us to surrender, then you can go. We have completely drawn a clear line with Black Sheep here. If you don't leave, then don't blame us veterans for taking action. Zykan said coldly. Hey, you are so loyal. Is it worth it for such a female? Ruka sneered, then changed the subject. I wonder if the Queen of the Zerg can still speak now? I came here this time, naturally, not to find mediocre beings like you. I just wanted to ask her if she knows a subdimensional person who is far beyond ordinary domain lords. Territory lord. A subspace domain lord who far exceeds ordinary domain lords. The middle-level galaxy being at the entrance of the main hall, as well as the Zykan flying above the planet, all had a trace of doubt because of this question. Then, they looked at Ruka flying in the universe, and they all thought slightly in their hearts, because they were afraid that the sentence itself was some kind of conspiracy. They all understand the wolfish heart of Black Sheep and the forces behind Black Sheep. The Zerg Queen has some good cultivation materials within her power, but these materials can only be used by domain lords who are stronger than ordinary territory lords. Even the Zerg Queen can only use part of them reluctantly. Now that Ruka has come to their temporary residence, what else has the territory lord said that is far beyond the average territory lord? Is he thinking about this batch of supplies again? Her Lady Queen definitely doesn't know any territory lord who is far beyond ordinary territory lords, so don't even think about trying to trick her. Get out. Zykan was the first to shout. Ruka looked at these defeated Zerg Queen forces and found that there was not much deception in their expressions, and he immediately became pondered. However, the purpose of his coming was to ask about the Queen of Zerg, not to ask about these middle-level peak powerhouses in the galaxy. Maybe the Zerg Queen has her own circle of territory lords, or maybe by chance, she met a senior territory lord with great subspace talent. This kind of thing is still possible, so he had to ask the Zerg Queen herself for confirmation, because this was what Black Sheep said personally. Two of you, I have said this. What you have said cannot count. I need the Queen of the Zerg to speak to me personally. Please let the Queen speak to me personally. This mid-level galaxy creature actually became aggressive. Oh. Ruka, could it be that you have become bolder because you have joined a new territory lord like Black Sheep? You actually dare to threaten us? And threatening us is not just threatening us, but you also want to threaten the Queen. Zykan discovered that this middle-level existence of the galaxy actually threatened them, and they suddenly felt like a tiger was being bullied by a dog. After all, he was under the three giants in the Zerg Queen's power at that time, and his status and identity were only lower than the Zerg Queen's. When this Ruka first saw him, he would have called him senior, but now, not only did he not call him senior, but he even threatened him. If such a villain succeeds, which is the kind of existence that is disgusting to the strong. Your Excellency Zykan, I advise you not to be impulsive. I admit that I may not be able to defeat you, but don't forget who is behind us. And what kind of existence is behind Lord Black Sheep? Can you be here now? Recuperating from injuries is just stinginess on our part. If you dare to make any move, you are really asking for your own death. Do you understand? Zykan. In Ruka's last words, he didn't even call him adult and directly called him Zykan. You. 11 Kun's eyes widened and he was almost on the verge of bursting out. Unfortunately, his reason and the impact of his injuries reminded him not to take action. It's over if they take action, or if they get angry immediately, this Ruka will die directly in their hands, but the question is, what happens after Ruka dies? For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this reading. Chapter 2319, Still Want to Threaten the Queen? Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe, reading record, and you can see it when you open the bookshelf next time. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support.